So let's get started. Hey, everybody. It's been already a year, so I hope you guys are good, even if you're new persons or people who have been following the Academy last year. That's session 1 of the Golaem Academy. I'm going to start with introduction of the team on our side. So you may see that there's 2 people from the Golaem side being connected. You've got Alex with the Golaem team alias.
Hello.
Who's gonna be my shadow buddy, is gonna make sure that everything is going fine in the background. So answering your questions in the question and answer, and make sure that everybody can follow. And that's gonna be me, Nico. I'm gonna be talking for all the sessions and teaching you how to be a crowd TD hero. So quick word regarding Zoom. If that's your first time using Zoom, there's 2 stuff that you may want to open at the same time than the screencast. One is the chat box to make sure that you can interact with everybody. And you can check if the chat box is working for you by maybe sharing your name, where you're from, what you do for a living. Have you done crowds in the past? Would love if you can share your experience with that. And so we can know, who we are talking to. And also you want to have the question and answer panel open, and every single questions that you may have during this session, something you may have not heard correctly, or if you got, lost on something and you need to go back, or anything that I'm not covering and you want me to cover, put it into the question and answer panel. Regarding the chat box, also make sure that by default it's the drop down goes to everyone. I think that's something. There's a drop down which allows you to specify who you'd like to talk with. So make sure that it's everyone being selected, so it's shared with everyone, except if you are actually looking to talk to us privately. Great. So that's for the Zoom organization. So today session is going to be 4 hours. We're going to try to break it in 1 hour kind of sessions. We're going to make a break every hour for 5 minutes, and that's after 2 hours we're going to make a 15 minutes break. On our side, we're in France, so that's 6 p.m. So we're going to run from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. And I think the hours are going to be exactly the same for the 4 sessions. So there's one today, there's going to be one on Thursday, and some others next week. So just before jumping into Maya and starting the actual session, I just have a few slides. It's just going to take us like a couple of minutes just to introduce us to introduce you to us. So that's the second sessions of the Golaem Academy. We made one last year, almost at the same time, which was, in our opinion, super successful. And we're doing this again, mostly to have more people being trained with the software, because there's so many open positions at the moment. So the slide is kind of updated, so outdated. I did not have the time to make the avatar for a new recruitment, but we're actually a 7-people company. So we're software developers. We've been writing this software, so it's a crowd simulation software for the past 11 years now. I think we celebrated our 11th year not so long ago, like 3 days ago. We're based in Rennes. If you're familiar with France, it's a small city in the northwest of France. And yeah, we've been pushing, the software for years, so it's been used successfully in the hundreds of production, which allowed us to grab a couple of awards, especially on Emmy Awards. And once again, that slide is not updated. We had a chance to also get a Caesar from the French Academy and a second Emmy Award not so long ago. And I can see a lot of people from France, Italy, Belgium. So welcome to all of you guys. Some people are actually from US as well. So hopefully it's not too late if you're in India, China, Japan. Sorry about the time we choose, but yeah, we had to figure one for everybody. So that's going to be the schedule for the 4 sessions. So today we're going to install the software, make sure that it's running properly. we're going to go through a quick start, which is making your first crowds in just a couple of minutes. And we're going to try tackling one of the first casual use case you have when you do crowds, which is stadium. So we'll populate the stadium, make a Mexican wave, and we're also going to try going fancy and advanced with making something we call TIFO. I'm not really sure if that's the right word, but you can hold a panel on top of your head and draw a shape or draw a logo with that. So we're going to try to do that today. On Thursday, there's going to be the second session, so same times, and we're going to also target another casual use case for crowds, which is armies. So which means we're going to try converting our own character. So bring a new character in Maya and make it a Golem character and make armies informations. We're going to do battles on day 3, which is going to be next week. And in the 4th sessions, we're going to do a city simulation with pedestrians. We're going to make some cars, traffics, and go through that. And a couple of days after, there's going to be a bonus session, which was not here last year, but we've been investing a lot into Unreal. So we're going to make a complete bonus sessions about Unreal. So if you've got any interest into Unreal and see how you can use Golem simulation in Unreal, that's going to be probably a good thing. And also we figured the best way to learn a software is to make a project by your own. So if you like, you'll be able to make your own project. We're going to provide licenses, support, and you'll have, I think, 3 weeks or something like that to create a crowd shot. And at the end of those 6 weeks, we're going to have a mixer session where we're going to try inviting some crowd TD from various studios, and we're going to review those shots. And the best shots will be assembled into a demo reel, and you guys we're gonna send you a couple of goodies for all the people who have participated to submitting their own shots. And yeah, so that's going to be day 1. Today's sessions, as I said, we're going to install the software. So install the plugin for Maya. Make sure that all your Maya parameters are correctly set up for Golem. We're going to quick start, which is making a first crowd. And as I said, making a stadium, Mexican wave, TIFO, and try to get this into rendering. Hopefully, we'll try to pack this into the first 4 hours. And I think, yeah, that's done. Yeah, if you haven't done so, yeah, let's finish with that one. If you haven't done so, join us on the Discord. There's a Discord server. You probably have got the connection information into the emails we've been sending. Okay, that slide is not up to date. I should have reread it again. There's plenty of mistakes, but join us on the Discord. That's going to be something which is still true. And we're going to provide support on the Discord as well. So if there's something you couldn't do during the sessions and you want to bring back, or if you're watching this in a replay session and you want to get in touch with the team, you can ask your questions on the Discord server. We are going to also send you some information probably tomorrow. So about today's sessions, it's recorded, it will be on YouTube, and probably from today, you'll be able to rewatch it. And we're also going to send you in the same email information to provide your MAC address. So we'll be able to provide a license. And that license could be used, to make the projects and to make sure that you don't have watermarked. So don't send us your MAC address now. We'll send you, a form that you can provide with all the data, and we're going to use this to send you back the license. And it's not going to be tomorrow for the army session. It's going to be on Thursday. Great. So we're going to start with, basics. Let's make sure that now we're having the right environment. So whenever you're not really sure what's going on and you want to make sure that Golem is going to be supported, the first thing to do is to go to the help section of Golem. So you can go help.golem.com, but else you can just check my screen and open the release notes. And every time a new release is here, it's going to be listed here. And for every single release at the end, we're going to provide you the information about what are the supported DCCs. So today we're going to mostly play with Maya. So we're here, you can see that Golem supports Maya from 2018 to 2022. We also support, sorry about that. We also support 3ds Max, Katana, Unreal, and Houdini, but that's only to be able to replay and lay out the simulations. But all the simulation will have to take place into Maya. And you also got information about the rendering engine we support. I also have a word regarding this, but you can see that by default, we support Arnold and specifically M2A50. So if you're wondering which version of Maya you want to use any of those between 18 and 22. And if you're wondering which rendering engine you're able to use today, I can check this list here. You may have noticed that Maya 2023 is not listed yet, mostly because we have to wait for some times for the API being distributed by Autodesk. So right now we don't have 23 support, but I think they just published the API, so that's probably something we can address in the next couple of weeks. Okay, so let's get started, and let's first download the Golaem packages. So if you want to download the Golaem packages, you can go into golaem.com, which is the main website, which has all the information we need. And we can jump into the try section. The try sections ask you some information about you, your name, your title, your company, your country. So everything which has a red star next to it needs to be filled. Also let us know which version of Maya you are using. That's especially useful for us in terms of statistics. Can we drop a whole version of Maya, or can we drop a version of rendering engine if nobody is using it? So make sure that you fill everything. And once you're filled everything, you can just press the try Golaem button, decide if you want to subscribe to the newsletter as well. And when you press that button, you'll end up with the links being able to download the different packages. So I'm going to fill it for myself. I'll let you, so that lets you also the time to fill it on your side. Here. I'm going to use Windows on my 2020, and I'm using Arnold at the moment. I'm not going to buy. And in terms of project, I'm just going to write Golaem Academy here. And I don't want to subscribe to the newsletter. I'm probably already subscribed it anyway. So once the form is filled, you end up, with a couple of links to get you quick started, but we'll go through those together. But mostly you get that download button here, which brings you directly to the packages page. If for some reasons, you lose that page, well, it's always a good thing to, favorite it into your browser. But if for some reason you lose it, you can still go back to it by using the URL, which is packages.golaem.com, and it will bring you to the exact same page. So if we just take a look at that page, we'll get the links for the Maya packages. We also got the links for the character pack and samples. We'll go through those. Also, if you're using USD, you can download the plugin for USD, for Unreal, for Houdini, 3ds Max, Xtana, the physics plugin, and also if you are a studio and you're using floating licenses, there's also the informations, the file to download, which is related to this. So here, if you're on Windows and Linux, pick your favorite column. And depending on which version of Maya you're using, obviously download the specific package. You want to make sure that you are using Golaem 8.1.3, which has been released like yesterday, right for the Academy. We wanted to fix and change a couple of things before the Academy to make something a bit simpler. If you're using older versions, that's going to be fine. But here on my side, I'm going to use the 8.1.3 versions, and slight stuff has been changing, mostly improvement in terms of UIs. So here I'm going to use Maya 2020, and I just want to download that package here, so I'm going to download it. And also today we're going to use pre-made assets, so pre-made characters. So we also want to make sure that you are downloading the Golaem character pack. So once again, you got one for Windows, one for Linux. You got a package for Maya, or a couple of packages for Maya, and also a package for Unreal Engine. So today we just want to play with the one for Maya. And you may notice that you got two links, one which is the Golaem character pack 8.1.3. And right below you get the Golaem character pack HD 8.1.3. So as the name tells, HD is high definition character. So it's one character, but high definition. And actually, to be honest, we mostly want to play with the non-HD version because it has way more characters. It has motions in it. It is more complete. So we want to download the Golem character pack 813. That's it, not the HD versions, and bring it onto your disk. So I'm going to download that one as well. Once you download those files, you're going to end up with 2 executables. Are there some people on Linux, or should I assume that everybody is on Windows? If you're on Linux, just put it into the chat box. Well, I mean, if you're on Linux and you need to install it, put it into the chat box. If everybody's on Windows, that's just going to be fine. And so in the meantime, so we get 2 executables. One which is orange, it's the actual package, the actual plugin for Maya, and one which is green, which is the character pack. So we're going to start installing the orange one, which is the Golem plugin, so the Maya plugin. So just double click on it. You'll go through a classic installer stuff, so a setup system. So it's welcoming you. We want to next this. Then there's the software license agreement. We're going to say that we're agreed with that. It's pretty casual stuff. Next is, where do you want to install it? So by default, it goes into your regular drive. It creates some specific folder called Golem, and it's going to create a version-based name system. So I'm going to stick with the default installation. Then you got a checkbox, which is, so if you're not into a studio, we recommend that you let it checked. It just tells that by default, Golem will be available into your Maya session. You don't have to set up any environment. It will just install itself, so Maya can find it when it's going to be started. So I'm going to let that checkbox here as well. Do you want to create start menu entries? And if you agree with that, you can just install it. So it takes a couple of seconds to install it. And when it's done, it's just also propose you to show important notice. You can let that one checked, and it's just a text file. So just grab your text editor, and that's just a notice about what's been installed. So it just repeat the exact same thing we've been seeing into the release notes, which is Golem supports Maya 2018 to 2022. And rendering engines, you got the list and the different versions which are supported. So I'll let you install that anywhere you want to. As soon as you let that checkbox being checked in the third panel, whatever where it's installed, Maya will be able to figure it out, because we're going to install some specific mod file whatsoever. Once we are good with this, we can also install the character pack. So the character pack is going to be a bunch of characters, motions, and scene to get us started. So we don't have to create our own characters. So once again, if you double click on it, it opens a panel, which you can browse into this. I'm going to say that I've read the license agreements. You can decide where you'd like to install it. So it's going to install it next to the actual package. So it's going to be into your drive, Golem directory, and the character pack. And next, I don't want to create shortcut menus. And it may take a bit longer. And something important is that at the end, it's going to open like a black window, like a kind of a command shell window. So please do not close that process, because that's a process which relocates your textures. It looks where your file, where the file has been installed, and it just make all the file paths looking into that directory. So once it's installed, you get that black window. So make sure not to close it and let it close by itself. Let me check questions in the meantime while it's installed. Are you going to cover any introduction to the dev kit, specifically the Golem digital asset Python API or the Golem layout Python API at some point in the training sessions? That's not going to be part of the program so far. We want to mostly concentrate on the usage of the software and not really the pipeline you can build around it. If you got specific questions, that's probably something we can address in a private manner. What will be the minimum requirements you would recommend for using the software, committing to bigger, heavier set pieces without any lag? Well, obviously, if you're going to make hundreds of thousands of characters, the bigger, the better. We don't have minimum requirements per se. If you can run Maya, that's probably going to be good enough. But obviously, the bigger, the better. We can benefit from CPUs and GPUs. If you have them, we're going to benefit from them. If you don't have them, we're going to do with what we have. But you'll be able to get thousands of characters even off on old computers, probably without too much lag within Maya. But I'll be interested to get your experience regarding this. Okay, so apparently it has been installed properly, so I'm kind of good with this now. Yeah, I can finish this. So that black window disappeared, and I've installed both the Maya plugin and the character pack. So here I've installed the Maya plugin for Maya 2020, which means that if I start Maya 2020, I should expect Golem to be available. So I'm going to start Maya 2020 from the start menu. So just a vanilla Maya. So here it's just saying that my license has been borrowed because most of the time I'm from home, and it's starting Maya. So that's Maya getting started. So yeah, you can start the exact same Maya you've been installed Golem for if you had multiple versions of Maya. Make sure that you're getting the right one. And yeah, obviously I've been running Golem before, so I've got the Golem shelf, but let me remove it. Yay, gotcha. Okay. So once Maya has been started, as Golem has been installed as a plugin, it means that if you want to load it, you need to bring it from the plugin manager. So you can find that plugin manager from the Windows menu. Into settings preference, you get the plugin manager. So it will list every single plugin that Maya is able to find. So either because it's installed into the Maya folder or some Maya that's some folder that Maya already knows about, or if a specific mod file has been installed in any of the predefined directories. So once again, into Windows, settings preference, plugin manager. So if you got multiple plugins and you want to find the Golem plugin right away, you can type into the search box. I'm not sure if it's available in every single Maya versions, but from 2020, actually I have it. If you go with GLM, which stands for Golem, and obviously I have to unload it and reload it to have it. It's gonna create for you a shelf. So if it loads properly, you'll get the checkbox being checked. You can auto load it if you want it. So if it worked properly, you also end up with a new shelf entry named Golem. You also get two new menus into the menu bar, one which is named Golem and one which is named Golem Render. And also you probably get that in-view message, which tells you that this Maya session is using a Golem personal license, Golem personal learning edition license, and all files saved using the session will be rendering limited. And if you want to know more about those limitations, you can connect on ple.golem.com. So quick word about that license that we are having at the moment. So as the name tells, it's a personal learning edition. It allows you to do everything. So all the features are unlocked. The only thing, and really that's super important, is that every single file you're going to save with that license will contain a watermark. So it means that as soon as you're going to try rendering them or play blasting them or bringing them into Unreal or Houdini, you get watermarks. And that watermarks will never disappear. So even if you buy a license afterwards, you're not able to unlock your files. That means that, it will not be a business model, a good business model else, because it means that studios could work for years with the Learning Edition and just buy a license for just 1 week, just to unlock their file. So keep in mind that every single file that you're going to do is going to be watermarked, and the watermark is going to be some random meshes on the characters will be orange. So I'm sure that I'll get that question today when we're going to reach render time. One guy or one girl will say, well, it renders, but I've got some meshes being orange. That's the watermark of the Learning Edition. So various way to know that you are running the PLE license, so the Personal Learning Edition license, that you get that in-view message, which disappears as soon as you move your mouse into the panel, into the shelf. You also get, when you're on the Golem shelf, you also get that orange lock at as the last icon of the shelf, which tells you that you're in learning edition. And final stuff to make sure that you are in learning edition, or if you are using a commercial license, is that if you go into Golem, the Golem menu, and you open the About box, it will tell you that you're running Golem 813 and you are running a Golem for Maya 8 personal learning edition license. So 3 different ways to let you know that everything that you're going to do and you're going to save from here will be watermarked. So always make sure that if you do production stuff, or if you make your your project, your assignment project for that Academy sessions, that you don't have that lock anytime. If you got that lock, it means that your files will be watermarked. So to be honest, we got ways internally to unlock the file, but it's a pain. So yeah, please make sure that you're not using the learning edition as soon as you're going to start assignments. Great. So anytime I start Golem on a new computer, the first thing I tend to do is to use the first icon from the shelf. And if I, over my mouse on top of it, I can get the tooltips. And I know that's something which is not enabled in Maya by default, the tooltips. So if any of you don't get the tooltips, this is the way you can get them. So if you go into Maya settings, not really sure where. Yeah, okay. If you go into the settings here, and you can get into interface, help, there's a checkbox called display tooltips. If that one is unchecked, as soon as you're going to put your mouse on top of an icon, you don't get it. And if you check it, the next time you're going to hover, now you get all the messages. And by the way, I can see a question in the questions and answer panel. I should have just probably said a word about this. So the question is, when launching Maya, I had an error. The procedure entry point AI array set uint could not be located in the dynamic library. So let's address that. So that error comes from M2A. So that's the Maya plugin for Arnold. And probably you have that Maya plugin for Arnold being installed on your Maya session. And there's indeed a couple of versions of Arnold M2A 5. So from 5.0 to 5.1, you get this error when Golem gets loaded at the same time than Maya, even on previous one, I think, even on M2A4. So that's something they fixed in the newest versions of M2A, but that does not prevent Golem to load. That does not prevent Maya to load, M2A to load. So you can just ignore this for the moment. We're going to actually address this a bit later. So we're going to make sure that you are using the right version of the Golem plugin for the right version of M2A. So if you got this error, you can just close those messages. I know they are annoying. Every time you're going to start Maya, you get those pop-ups, but we're going to fix this a bit later today. So no problem with that. Okay, so that first button I was saying. So in the shelf, you got that first icon here, which is the check scene settings. And if we look at the tooltip error messages, it tells you that it allows to check if Maya and Golem simulation settings are correct. So we're going to click on that button here, and it's going to show you, various options from Maya, and we're going to try making sure that for every of those options, it comes with a yes. So what are those different options? So they're mostly related to, classic parameters within Maya. So the first one is the play every frame. So this one is super important. Golem is a simulation-based tool. So when you do simulation and you want them to be always the same, every time you throw Maya, you always want to have the same results. So you want to make sure that Maya gets evaluated the same way every single time. So by default, Maya is not set into play every frame. Play every frame means that when you're going to throw, the time controls, it's going to play every single frame. If your simulation is too heavy, or if your scene is too heavy, by default, Maya will tend to skip some frames to make sure that you're still running 24 FPS. But that's not something we want, because it means that every single time Maya will run differently and you end up with a different simulation. and sometimes it may even prevent the simulations to start. So we want to make sure that play every frame is set properly. So the way you set it, so we're gonna, let's say you've got a no for that first line. Let's roger that. And we want to right click into the timeline. We want to go into playback speed. So probably your playback speed is set to real time. So here you want to set it to either play every frame free. Free means that there's no limits in terms of FPS. So if the simulation goes super fast, you'll see it going super fast. Or if you want to have max 24 FPS, so having the simulation running at maximum 24 FPS like me, you want to check play every frame max real time. So that's the first option, and that's the one which is super important. You also want to make sure that your y-axis is the up axis. I'm not really sure where we set this, but that's default Maya stuff. So probably none of you guys have this, but I'm not sure where it is. Yeah, okay, that's into the preferences, settings, and the world coordinates. You want to have the y-axis. I know some studios are working with 3ds Max at some point, and they want to be able to interchange assets, and they tend to set up z-axis. For Golem, we really want to have the y-axis. And we also, while we're still in that panel, we still want also to make sure that the working unit is in its default settings, which is centimeters. What else do we have? So let's reopen this again. So linear working unit is set up to centimeter. We've been speaking about that one. The up axis is set up to Y. We've been speaking about that one. We also want to make sure that locators and plugin shapes are showed into the viewport. So this is some viewport options. We also want to make sure that the rendering engine is set to OpenGL and you're not using DirectX. And that's you know, an old options that's mostly for Legacy Studio. But if you guys have troubles with any of these options, or you want me to repeat, or you got to know and you're not really understanding what's going on, let us know into the chat box, and I'm gonna speak about that option again. Also, if you got to know, you probably got an help link. You can click on that help link, and that brings you to the documentation, which will help you fixing that specific issue. But on my side, it's a full yes. So it means that well, the plugin has been installed properly, Maya has been set up properly, Golem has been set up properly, and now we can you know, start making our first crowd. Okay. So making a first crowd. So what, maybe just a quick word about the way the software is organized. So as I said, we've got that shelf entry, and the icons are mostly sorted into icons which are making similar stuff, or you are requiring them into a specific order in your process. So you got the scene checker that you can call every time, even when you start making a scene and it doesn't work, it's adaptive to your scene. So let's say you launch a simulation and then you're not really sure why your characters are not appearing. Probably you forgot something. So you want to reopen that checker here and there just to make sure that you haven't forgot, especially when you begin using the software. Then you got those first 4 icons, which are mostly to help you set up your assets. So bringing, converting characters, converting motions, converting terrain, bringing your terrain into your scene. Then you got everything which is related into set up your scene, your simulation scene, everything which is related to behaviors and behavior tools, everything which is related to exporting your simulations as a cache, and then interacting with your simulation caches, rendering, shading. So you got, you know, the order is usually the order we're going to use them. So preparing assets, making your simulation, assigning behaviors, exporting, rendering, and layout shading. So here we're going to skip that part today, converting the assets. We're going to do this on Thursday. We're going to convert a own character from the beginning. And we actually want to start making a first simulation using those setups icon here. So the first icon I actually want to use is the EntityType node. So the EntityType node icon is the 2 T-pose character. There's a white T-pose and an orange T-pose character next to each other. And if I just click on that icon here, it's gonna ask me to select a file right away. So quick word about the entity type. So the entity type define a new type of characters you want to bring into your scene. Let's say we're gonna make a battle scenes. So we may end up with, you know, soldiers from the first army, and then soldiers for the second army. So those are going to have, different behaviors. They're going to have different representation of geometry. So they may end up as two different entity types. So you can create as many entity types in your scene as you want, and bring them and assign them with different behaviors. So the character file that we want to load, they are from the character pack. So we've been installing the character pack into, well, if you haven't changed the default directory, that's into C, well, your drive, into Golem character pack. And then this is how the stuff are organized. You got a Golem directory, which has multiple subdirectories, one which is characters, motions, shaders, and textures into a source images file. So here we want to bring a character file into the scene. So we want to bring a new type of entity. So we're going to go into the character pack, Golem characters. We're going to see a full list of different characters which are embedded into the character pack. And probably the first one we want to play with is the casual man. We're going to do stadium today, so we don't want to bring soldiers. Well, you could probably make a stadium with soldiers still, but we mostly want to bring casual characters, so contemporary characters. So we got a man and a woman, and we got also one which is a light version of the man character, which is called casual man _ light. So light just means that you got less assets than the rest. And I'm just going to select those and open it. Once I open it, then I get a second browser, which tells me that I can import a Maya scene containing the shaders, and we'll get a list of shaders. So just a quick word regarding this. So by default, the Golem character does not include shaders, because you guys may want to use, Redshift, Arnold, Random, and V-Ray whatsoever. So there's no big deal. There's no really good way for us to include shaders into a file format. So what we ask you to do is to put those shaders somewhere. I have a word about shaders, a more advanced word about shaders later in the sessions, but just to resume here, we want to bring the shaders from that character, so they are available into the scene, so we can see the characters with shaders. When we're going to render, they're going to have the shaders as well. So it's ask you here if you want to bring the shaders, so you can say, okay, I want to cancel and I want to bring shaders. If you don't bring shaders, you won't get your shaded character into the viewport, and they will look with a flat orange color. But if you want to see, your crowd with everything on it, with the shaders and the geometry, probably it's a good way to load the shaders. So, and by the way, if you got an error regarding your rendering engine, so I probably should have covered this before. Okay, let's go still through that. And for some people it may work, for some people it may not work. No problem, we're gonna fix that later. But anyway, we're gonna load shaders. So the shaders, once again, they are from the character pack. You can go into C, Golem character pack 813. And if you go back once again into Golem, so it'd probably be a good idea to favorite that directory because we're gonna need to access this pretty often today. So Golem, and if you go into shaders, now you end up with a full list of Maya files, which is exactly what we need to import. So those Maya files, they are sorted by the different characters. So you can see you've got the arachnid characters with some postfix. You've got the AR default, RM, RS, VR. So AR stands for Arnold, RM stands for Randomman, RS stands for Redshift, VR stands for V-Ray. So we've made shaders for the different render engines for the different characters. So here I'm using the casual man light. I'm using Arnold. So I want to make sure that I import for the shaders a file which is called casual man light, which is exactly the same character that I've been loading. Underscore AR for Arnold. And if your versions of N2A is assigned with your versions of Golem, which is apparently not my case, right? You probably get your character into your scene. So let's pause this for a minute. What we just did is we used the EntityType button to create a new entity type in the scene. So an entity type is a description of a character. Entity type relies on a file format called Golem character with the extension GCHA, which stands for Golem character. It has everything which is related to the character, so the skeleton, the geometry variation, and so on and so forth. And it's already made for you. So those characters here, we already exported and converted them from a Maya character, and we'll see on Thursday how you can create your own characters yourself. But for today, we're just going to use characters that are provided with the character pack. So I've been loading a character from the character pack here. It also asked me if I wanted to load shaders. So I bring the shaders, but apparently I'm not using versions of Arnold which is supported. This is why I end up with the green shader, but whatsoever, no problem. It doesn't prevent us to make a simulation anyway. So also let's take a look at what went into the scene. So if we check, there's plenty of new groups appearing in the scene, also a node. So let's start in the order. First, we've got the crowd manager. So let's select that guy here. When you select the crowd manager, it's a Maya node. So if you check the attribute editor, this is the attribute editor is always where we're going to put all the informations and the attribute about the node. So you can open the attribute editor, from that panel here. That's the third icon on Maya 2020. It's that icon with the different sliders that allows you to open the attribute editor. And when you select the node, you can see the various attributes related to that node. So the crowd manager, consider it as the nucleus for the Golem simulation. It has all the information which are shared by every single entity in the scene, all the global parameters. So the global parameters are, for example, what's the current time of the scene? So we are at frame 1, so we're connecting to the time. What's the start frame of the simulation? So the start frame of the simulation is the start frame of your actual timeline here. It also have a panel, a drop down, which is super important, and we're going to have a word about it, which is the crowd units. And the crowd units, you can see that you can change it. So let's see how we set this up. Some information about the scale, the characters, and various options that we may dig into a bit later. So I'll go back into the crowd unit right after, but let me just go through everything which has been created. There's also a transform into your outliner, which is called GLM behaviors. If we expand this, we've got something called the entity type container. Okay, let's assume that's fine. So as you may understand, GLM behaviors is going to be the directory in which we're going to put every single behavior we're going to create and assign to our characters. We're just sorting them so they don't look messed up into the outliner. We also have a GLM entity types group that we can expand. We end up with a green node called entity type 1. If we select that guy and we once again open the attribute editor on the shape, we can see the file which we have been loading. So we get the full path of the Golem character that we've been loading. There's some scale options as well. So we can see the character will have some variation scale. So scale min, scale max, those are going to be ratios from which we're going to multiply the scale of the character by. It has some display attribute. It has some color. So that color is green, which is the exact same color than the one we're having into the outliner. So every time we're going to create a new entity type, it will end up into a different colors, and that will allow us to recognize in the viewport the different type of characters we have in our scenes. And by the way, we may want to name that entity type properly. So let's rename this like casual man type. Let's make the scene being nice. By the way, the scenes are going to be shared. So the screencast is going to be published onto probably YouTube. And we're also going to share the scenes on our website. So we're going to provide you the links for the scenes as well. And you know what? I'm going to save my scene right away to also make sure that I don't lose it. So I'm going to name 01 because that's the first session, A for the first scene. I'm going to name this Quickstart because that's going to be my Quickstart sessions. And obviously, I need to save it as a Maya binary because I've got some shaders that are not recognized into the scene. So let's redo this 01. So if you got that unknown nodes pop up as well, you just want to save your scene as a Maya binary. We have to check exactly what's going on for my rendering side. So Quickstart here, and I would save it as a Maya binary. So now it's saved properly. Okay. So yeah, it has some colors, it has some sliders, and once again, we're gonna dig into this a bit later. But this is what we've been creating so far. When we click on that button, it creates that entity type that we're just having into the scenes. And finally, we've got the GLM shaders group. And if we expand this, we'll just get shaders that we've been loading into the scene. So that's a representation of a character with the shaders. It's not working on my side, but for some of you, if you got the right version of Arnold, which is supported by default, it's probably working. Right, but never mind. If it's not working on your side, never mind. We're gonna fix that a bit later and check out exactly which version of the rendering engines are supported. So okay, we're actually good to move forward. And just before moving forward, let me go back into the manager node and just have a quick word about the crowd unit, because that could be an important parameter that you want to set up properly every time you create a new scene or you start a new show. So obviously within Golem, you got plenty of parameters which are unit dependent. You may want to specify the speed of a character. And for the speed of the character, you want to make sure that 1 unit in Maya corresponds to something in real life. You want your characters to move at 1 unit per second. So you need to make sure that if it's a meter, a centimeter, a decimeter, whatsoever. So a good rule to know exactly how you want to set that crowd unit is what is a square of the grid here. So you've got a square of your grid into Maya. What's the actual correspondence of this? So is a square grid a meter, a centimeter, a decimeter, a yard, an inch? So it really depends on your environment. So you create your environment, you do your modeling and so on. And at the end of the day, you want to know, okay, in that environment, how much is 1 square grid? So you can see here, let's say that character defines the size of my environment. And let's say my environment is something which is that big, something like that, for example. Here, that character is probably 1.7 square grid. So 1.7 square grid, if that character is an actual human, means that my unit is probably 1 meter. 1 square grid here is 1 meter because my character is 1.7 whatsoever. So into your manager here, you want to make sure that you always set this up properly before doing anything else. Before making any simulation, you want to make sure that that crowd unit is set up properly. So for usage today, the crowd unit is going to be fine with its default value, which is meter. So we're going to consider when we're going to, making a stadium later today, we're going to consider 1 square grid is 1 meter. So when you're going to make a stadium modeling where we're going to create just a quick floor, so that's going to be the size you want to refer when you're going to create the size of your polygon. So hopefully that makes sense, but by default, just stick it to meter. But if in a production, you're going to use a different unit, every single studio, they've got their own way. So you want to set this up in a different value, but by default, we're just going to stick with meters. Hopefully that makes sense. So, okay, let's move forward. And I'm going to remove that plane. I'm not going to need it for the quick start. And I'm going to create my first simulation. So creating your first simulation means that, so we've been loading an entity type. So we've been saying in my scene, I'm able to use that guy here, which is the casual man type, which is referring that file here. And I want to populate that many. So you need to specify how much or how many is that many. And also what's going to be the initial positions, initial orientations of those characters, and how many of those characters you would like to have. So we need to spawn characters into the scenes. So spawning characters, let's take a look into the various icons we're having. So as I was saying, we're kind of moving right with the icons. And one icon we may be interested in is one which is called the population tool. So population tool, when I hover the mouse on top of the icon, it tells me that it's a population tool. It allows to create a population tool to place and emit Golem entities. So that's probably exactly what we need here, a tool to spawn your entities. And as it's a tool, you need to, as in any Maya tools, as in any tools in Maya, you need to double click on it to show what are the options. If you just single click on it, it will just take the previous setting that you had for it. If you double click, it allows you to open the tool settings. So here I've been double clicking on the icon. And when you double click, you get the tool settings panels, which allows you to define what you're going to spawn around. So you got the population settings and the various shapes here. So we can apparently draw just a point. We can draw a box. We can draw whatever, end-drawn polygon, circle, triangle, and a sphere. So that means that that's stuff you can draw yourself into the viewport. Then you got a section called Populate in Selection. So Populate in Selection means that we're going to rely on Maya objects to populate the scene. So we may rely on vertices, meshes, curves, whatsoever. And finally, you got a panel which allows you to control which entity types you're going to populate with that population tool. And we can see that we'll have our entity type we just created, which is checked by default. So by default, we're considering that all the entity types in the scene are available from that tool. So if you uncheck it, it means that you're not going to populate that guy, but you can still change your mind afterwards once the tool has been created. So here we're just going to stick with the default settings. So we're just going to stick with the cross icon. And the cross icon, you also get a message into your viewport, which is saying click and drag to add your locator. So I actually don't need to drag here. I just need to click. And when I click into the viewport with the default option, it creates automatically that locator into the scene with 5 slots on it. So let's redo this operation. So I'm going to remove that. I'm going to double click onto the population tool. So that's the icon, which looks like orange particle systems being stacked to each other. So that's the tool we're going to use to spawn characters around. I stick with the default settings, which is the shape, the cross shape. And I let the casual man type checkbox checked. And I just click anywhere into the viewport, and that created for me automatically that population tool. If we check into the outliner, we can see the GLM populations group being created. If we expand it, we have a pop tool 1 node into the scene with the icon corresponding to the icon of the population tool we've been clicking into the shelf. And once again, if we go into the attribute editor, into the shape, now we're having all the different options being available from that spawning tool. So the first slider which is available is the number of characters we're going to spawning. So by default, that slot value is set up to 5, but I can expand. So I can expand into, let's say, 1,000. And you may notice that even if you say 1,000, you always end up with a maximum of 60 positions. So you can see actually that you're asking 800 slots to be created, but right below you got the placed slots, not editable attribute, which shows you how many slots you actually have into your scene. And right now I'm just having 60 of those. The reason I'm having 60 of those is because that tool we're just creating is the grid tool. And that grid tool is also controlled by a number of lines and a number of columns, which are available below. So if you reach, well, not the end of the attribute editor, but if you just scroll down, you get a number of columns and a number of row controls. So with a couple of sliders next to it, which are set up to 10 and 6, and 10 per 6 is 60. So we are just allowing to have a maximum of 10 columns and 6 rows. So this is why we end up with only 60 characters. Let's say we want more. Let's expand those. So as soon as I expand, I can see that my place slot is way more than my initial 60 that I had into my scene before. So just choose your favorite value here. Well, actually, it's a quick start. So let's stay into hundreds of thousands of characters. And let's not move into 10 of thousands or 100 of thousands. Let's just experiment first what your computer can handle here. So here I'm having 500 characters. For me, that's good enough. And there's other parameters you can edit around. So there's a distance X and Z parameters, for example, which allows you to control what's going to be the distance between your positions. So you've got X and Z controls. Those are connected by default. But if you'd like, you can break the connection, which allows you to change differently the Z distance and the X distance. So once again, do whatever you want to. As it's a grid, all my characters are aligned. If you're not really happy with that alignment, you can just noise this. So you can noise X and noise Z as well. So noise, as soon as you provide some noise, you can see that now the characters, they are moving into different direction, and you don't have that grid pattern anymore. So yeah, play with whatever you want to. That's just initial position, so we don't have to make sure that it's exactly plays the way we want. We can still do some stuff with the same afterwards. Well, if it's a stadium, you want to make sure that your initial placement is good, but if that's just going to be moving characters, we don't really care what's going on here. We can also play with orientation. So we've got a global orientation slider, which allows us to orient all the slots into the same direction. But we also have a noise orientation parameter that we can use and change just to noise this anywhere we want to. Okay, so I'll let you tweak those the way you'd like. There's obviously plenty of attributes which are hidden, but for the quick start, we're not going to dig into too much of this. And yeah, I'll let you check exactly what's going on here. You can move that pop tool around. That node can be translated or rotated any way you want to. And well, I can see a question, which is my noise X is grayed out. So indeed, if your distance is set up to 0, 0, if you don't provide any distance, we can't really noise a distance. So if you're having some grayed out noise here, you want to make sure that you're providing some distance parameters so we can noise in some actual space. So provide some X and Z noise here, or distance here, so that allows you to noise those a bit. Okay. So yeah, let's tweak those parameters. And when you're happy with that, you may have noticed that at the end, you've got a create button. And if we press create, it's going to create for us our first crowd. And if we want to see a first crowd, we need, as in any simulation tool, we need to evaluate a frame. And as the initial frame of the simulation defined in the manager is 1, start frame is 1, it means that we need to evaluate frame 1. So we need to change the time from frame 1. So if you're not at frame 1, I invite you to go back into frame 1 and just run one frame. And if you run one frame and everything went well and you've been creating your crowd, you should end up with your bunch of characters. So you're going to have your casual man lights being instantiated on every single population tool positions at the right position, the right orientation, and following some assets variation here. So just by saying into the chat box, are you able to see a crowd? Just a yes or a +1 or whatsoever, just to let you know that at least some of you were able to follow that point. Let's flow this. Okay, yeah, I can see mostly people are able to go through. So if you, for some reason, the plugin installation didn't work for you, or if the assets are not working for you, if you got weird errors, if you got conflict with our plugins or whatsoever, and you're not able to follow the sessions for some reasons hands-on, please do not lose motivation. Post on the Discord, and we'll figure this out. You'll be able to follow the tutorial afterwards, and you'll be settled for the next one. For the first session, there's a lot of stuff to put into place, like you have to install the plugin and make sure it works. So if for some reason it doesn't work, we'll help you going through that step, which can be tedious. So we figured exactly what's wrong. So please push into the the Discord or into the support form, and we'll be happy to having you being set up properly. So I can see a couple of yes, so that's a good thing. So maybe like me, they're not shaded. Maybe you got weird colors. Maybe they are black. Maybe they are orange. Maybe they are green. That's fine. Well, that's fine. That's not so fine, but at least if the geometry appears, that's going to be great. we're going to stick with that. So if your characters have weird colors, that's probably because the rendering engine that you're having and the versions that you're having is not exactly supported. Yeah, make sure that at least the geometry is being applied. And also got a question. Can you please show your display grid settings? I'm confused with scaling side of things. Well, I think I didn't change my my grid settings, but for sure I can change it. Well, let's not speak about grid. Let's speak about like something which is, you know, the same for everybody. So let's jump back into units again. Let's say you just create a cube, and let's say that cube is 1, 1, 1. So no relation to grid or whatsoever. I'm using the grid because I know that the grid is correctly set on my side. But let's say your grid for some reason has been changed and you can't rely on it. Let's just create a cube, and let's put white 8 and depth 1, 1, 1, and let's stick with the scale 1, 1, 1. So that's a 1 unit cube into your scene. So how much is 1 unit? So here, 1 unit compared to the character. So that cube here, the best way to represent it is probably my cube is 1 meters because my character is probably 1.75 meters. So that's the way you set up your units. So my cube 1, 1, 1 here. Here it's a meter. So in the manager, I want to make sure that I have meters. Okay, and I can see still puzzle people. So yeah, let's have a word. That's something I didn't really want to dive into, but if people are asking this, let's go through this. So one question I'm having is cube is 1, 1, 1. So why did we select meters in the manager as the Maya settings are set to centimeters as unit scale? So just a quick word. If within Maya, you take a 1, 1, 1 cube and you put it at 1 unit above the ground, and you play a physics simulation that's using like you know, the N-rigid body or the Maya physics simulation. If you run that simulation, it will take 24 frames for that cube to hit the ground. So it will take 24 frames to go through 1 unit in Maya. If we relate to, so if we say, okay, Maya is set up by default in centimeters, it will mean that my cube is 1 centimeter. We put it 1 centimeter above the ground, but still it takes 24 frames to fall into the ground. Well, in real life, obviously, if you put a piece like a dice 1 centimeter above the ground, it doesn't take 1 second, right? It takes, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 frames. So yeah, just a couple of milliseconds to fall. So it means that even if Maya is set up to centimeter, it's lying to you. It's not in centimeters, to be honest. It's actually meters. The fact that it's centimeters is because in Maya 1.0, they had a bug with the physics system. And as all the studios built, you know, their pipeline around that bug, they don't want to change it anymore, else it would break the pipelines all around the world. So there's a kind of, you know, word of mouth in all the studio, which is never touch the Maya unit, which means that we can't rely on the Maya unit. It has to always be centimeters because we built all the pipeline around it, and every single plugin or every single system which needs to rely on the unit will have to provide its own way to control the unit. So even if within Maya it's set up to centimeters, it's not centimeters by default. Maya is actually meters by default, especially on the physics system. So we have to provide our own way to, you know, swim around this. So here, if you know the character is 1.28 units, it's probably like 1.28 units. So obviously that makes sense now. So okay, great. We got a first crowd going on here. All good. So probably the second thing we would like to do is maybe provide some animations. Like a good quick start is spawning characters around and providing animations. Or maybe just a quick word about the population tool, by the way. Something also which mess up people a lot is if I move, you know, if I rewind the simulation. So yeah, quick word about simulation. So every time you change anything about the simulation, you always have to go back into the first frame and run the first couple of frames to see the results of your simulation. And also something which is puzzling people is if you move your population tool and you play your simulation, you'll always get your characters at the previous position. So that tool, the population tool, is a spawning tool which only spawn when you ask it to do it. So if you move it around, change its attribute, reduce the number of entities, or augment the number of entities, or change the repartition of the characters, you always have to specify to the system that it needs to be updated. So let's say you need to change your initial positions of your character. So let's apply some translation, rotation, whatsoever. And you want your crowd to take this into account. You have to go back into your population tool. So it can be also convenient to rename it properly if you got multiple into your scene. And if we check, now we don't have access to that create button anymore, but instead we've got two buttons appearing. One is replace. So replace means that if I press it, I'm going to replace my crowd. And the next time I'm going to run the simulation, now I get my population at the right spots. Or, oops, sorry. Or if I use the other buttons, which is happened. Happen means that we're going to add to the current crowd those new positions. So let's say you want to have twice more characters into the scene. You can just move your population tool around, happened, crowds in it. And the next time you're going to throw your simulation, you got twice more characters. So you got 2 times the same patch of population being created. And at any time, you can still change your mind, say, okay, this is where my characters are supposed to go. I want to replace and go back to my 500 characters. So, the overall idea is that pop tool, you control exactly when it's going to spawn characters around. So that's your decision. And don't forget about it, that you need to update your system, your characters, anytime you do some changes if you want them to apply. Also, just some good practice here, but that's just my personal advice. I tend to always keep one population tool per group of characters. I don't like, moving it around and say, okay, I'm going to create another crowd here, or I'm going to create another crowd there. And, I have my population tool moving around. I tend to, just redo a new population tool anytime I need to have a new crowd being set up. Because if for some reason, I'm being asked to go back into my previous setup and I'm being asked to, add more characters or have less characters, I always want to be able to jump into that pop tool, change its parameter, and just replace it. Okay, so we're kind of good with this. So let's move forward and assign some behaviors to my character. So I'm going to jump into the Golem Chef here. And once again, I'm going to move forward with the different icons, and specifically one icon, which is where we're going to spend most of our time in our sessions, is going to be the behavior editor. So it's next to the population tool. You've got a separator, and right after you've got the behavior editor. So if you put your mouse on top of it, it shows you that you can view and edit the simulation behavior of the Golaem entity types. If you open that guy here, it opens an editor, and we're going to try, making a way around it. So if you don't have all the panels like me, you can see I've got libraries on the left. I've got outliners on the right. That's probably because those options are disabled. So on the top right panel, you can just click them to show the library. So the behavior library, the trigger library, and the node outliner. So this is the way I tend to, organize my tools. So I've got libraries on the left, I've got outliners on the right, and in the central space, I've got my main workflow. So how do you read this? So first, let's take a look at the outliner. So the outliner first, it shows you in the above panels, it shows you the different entity types you have in your scene. So right now we're just having one type. We're having that casual man-like character in the scene, which is green. And we can see we've got an entity type icon with a green dot next to it with the right name next to it. So we've got all of our types here. So right now we're just having one, but if we had multiples, they will be listed there. Then you've got your behaviors. Your behaviors, you can figure there's the container that we noticed before, which is in the GLM behaviors group. So right now, okay, there's a container. We'll speak about that a bit more later. We also have some tabs there, which allows us to navigate to motion clips. So we can see the different motion clips. They are known right now. And finally, another tab, which is triggers. So we can see the various triggers we have into the scene, and that will be our job to populate those. So let's go back into the behavior tab. You've got on your left two different libraries. You've got the behavior library with a couple of walking characters around with weird icons. We're going to go through those. Couple of behavior operators, so they allow us to combine behaviors together, and a panel called custom behaviors, which is where we'll be able to save presets of behaviors that we really like and we use a lot. Then you have another panel which is called the trigger library. So we've got, once again, a library of triggers, weird icons. We're going to play with those operators, which allows you to combine triggers together, and also custom triggers. Whenever you have triggers that you really like, you'll be able to save them around. So anyway, libraries, but we're going to speak way more in details about those. And finally, you got that central space, which is telling you to open a crowd entity type from the outliner to get the party started. So let's follow that rule. So let's open the crowd entity type. So if you double click on your entity type here, so from the outliner, if you double click on an entity type, you end up with a new tab into the main space that you can close if you want to. If you close it, you can just reopen it the same way we've been opening it. And we've got two dots connected with an arrow. So we call this the behavior flow. So the dot on the left, the blue, gray blue flat one, is the start of your simulation, and the one on the right is the end of your simulation. And everything which is in between is what's going to be executed during your simulation, during your shot. And that's going to be our duty to drag and drop some nodes, put it into this flow here to assign behaviors to your characters. So let's assign a behavior to that character. We want them maybe to play some animation. So let's check what we have. So I want to drag and drop a behavior. So I want to assign behavior to my characters into that simulation flow here, the behavior flow. So let's check what we have. So the first one, let's look at the icon. Let's hover the mouse. It's called go to, which compute a path to a target. So okay, that doesn't allow us to play an animation. What's next? Second one is called navigation, and we can see two characters on top. It's a top view of two characters avoiding each other. So it defined a 2D.5 avoidance strategy based on the nav mesh. So this is not what we want here. Third one is a walking character. So white character walking, and it's called motion. It play a set of Golem motions. So that's something I'm interested with. So I'm going to drag that icon into the space here, into the behavior space here. And if I, click and drag, if I release my mouse, it's going to create that behavior block, that behavior into your scene. So we call this just a behavior. So it has a name. It's called BE, which stands for behavior. Motion, which is the type of behavior we have, and shape, because we are in Maya, so that's going to be a shape. We can see in brackets, it's a motion behavior. So that's just tells you that it comes from the motion icon here. It has an icon which is the same from the behavior library. And you may notice that if you, like me, you've been dropping it, in the blue, it's kind of grayed out, doesn't look like active. And if you want to activate it, if you want to assign it to your characters, you actually have to, assign it to the flow. So you can just drag that behavior until the main arrow turns orange. And as soon as it's orange, it means that if you release that behavior, it will be connected automatically to the flow. So once again, I'm going to redo the operations. I'm going to remove that behavior, drag it again from the library. So I've been taking the third one, the character which is the white character walking, not the one with the green arrow next to it, just the regular walking white character. I've been drag and dropping it into the main space. So the main space is my casual mine type container. And I just assign it to my entity by just drag and dropping it onto the flow. So now that it's on the flow, you can move it around. You can see they are connected. And if for some reason you need to unconnect it, what you can just do is press Alt and left click. You can see that your icon turns into a razor blade. And if you move that behavior around, now it disconnects it from the flow. So I've been drag and dropping it, put it into the arrow, and then I've been using Alt to disconnecting it. And just before taking a break, we're gonna actually populate that behavior to make a character move. So let's take a look at that behavior. So once again, it's a Maya node. So if we look into the attribute editor of the shape, we'll get a couple of attributes related to that behavior. So we can see it has some motion attributes. I'll be able to play some clips. It has some start frame attributes, starting duration, body mass, speed ratio. So all those panels are closed down by default, but obviously the first thing we want to do is say what motions we want to play to those characters. So either we can control the motions from directly the attribute editor, or just a quick also shortcut is that if you double click on a motion behavior, it will browse, it will open a browser, and that browser will allow you to fetch some animations. So once again, from the Golaem character pack into the Golaem subdirectory, we've been seeing that we've got a motions directory, which holds a couple of clips that we can provide. So if I open that motions directory, we can see we've got subdirectories also. We've got audience motions, so that's stadium animations, which are mostly on spots. But here I want my characters to move around. So let's maybe dive into the locomotion directory. Let's open the locomotion directory from the character pack. So character pack, Golaem motion, locomotion. We've got a couple of clips here, and I'm just gonna take my walk animations. So I've got 3 walk animations, which are named casual_walk, and we've got walk fast, walk normal, walk slow. If you press Control, you can select multiple animation, and if you assign multiple animation to a motion clip, we're just gonna randomly distribute those 3 animations to all the characters you have being assigned to that clip, to that behavior. So I'm just gonna select those motions there, press OK. And once again, if I want to see the result of the simulation, I need to rewind, go back into the first frame and run the simulation. And hopefully you got characters walking with various clips, with various speeds. So yeah, we got plenty of collisions, but no problem. Well, that's supposed to happen because we haven't defined any collision avoidance strategy. So we got plenty of collisions, but at least we've got hundreds of characters playing various animations, the 3 different clips we've been providing. And yeah, we've been passing where it's been more than an hour we've been running that session. So let's do a break for maybe 5 minutes. If you guys have been some troubles catching up so far, probably it's a good time to ask maybe questions around if you had troubles. Let's see what we can do. But so it's on my side, it's 7:20. So let's meet back at 7:25 to bring to continue with that scene. And just before leaving, if you can tell me if you got walking characters, that'll be great. Great, thanks for the feedback. Damn, it's already 26. Okay. Maybe let's take if you guys got any questions regarding what we've been doing so far. Probably that's a good time before we resume. I can probably take a couple of questions. Let me check if there are some open ones. Well, there's actually one. So in some case, the same GMO file will cause the animation to look differently on different GCHA characters. Like how I'm flipping through the body will be fine on some characters, and then on some it will be random and inconsistent. Even through all the GCHA characters have the same skeleton and bone mapping. What would be the reason? Oh, that's a pretty advanced questions, right? Well, it really depends. It's probably one thing you can think about is probably having different typos. So yeah, well, let me maybe resume the questions. Within Golem, we've got retargeting, which means here we didn't really thought about is the motion we are loading on the character is going to be compatible with it, because we take care of this for you. So you can take any animation from any source and replay that onto any other character, and we'll do retargeting on the fly. So obviously it happens that sometimes the retargeting doesn't happen properly. Sometimes the arms, they can be colliding with the body, or the angles which are replayed are not looking nice. There are plenty of reasons which can actually feed this. It will depend maybe on the typos of the character. It will depend how the motion has been stored, how the mapping will look like. So plenty of different reasons, and probably the best way is for us to check exactly how you ended up with that result. So open a simple request and we'll take a look and let you know exactly what was the difference. But yeah, in our situations, no need to, for today, especially with the motions and the character we've been providing, no need to take care into too much details regarding this. Okay, so here, okay, we're having our characters playing a nice animation, picking a random animation. If we want to make sure which animation is being picked by a character at any time when the simulation is running, we can actually select a guy. Once you select a guy, you end up with the visual feedback window being opened. If by accident you close it, you can still reopen it from the shelf icon next to the behavior editor. So either you just click on another character and it will reopen by itself. But let's say you closed it and you got the selection being active and you still want to see what's going on, you can open the visual feedback and it will show you your actual character being selected and what it is doing. So that visual feedback can be also seen in the behavior editor. So when you open the behavior editor, you will see which behaviors are being played. So you have a real-time feedback about what's going on. Here, the graph is pretty easy to understand. There's just one behavior, but let's say we do some branching, some choices or whatsoever, you'll be able to see that branching and which decision has been taken by every single character if you need to debug what's going on. So yeah, that's for it here. When it's green with the with the play icon, I guess it's pretty straightforward. It just means that that character is playing that motion. Great. So let's maybe speak about the visual feedback. So visual feedback, we've got a window with the skeleton of the characters that we can move around. So we can just use the left click of the mouse to actually see what's going on and move around the character. We'll see how will look the next footprints of the characters, where you're going to put his feet on the ground. We'll get plenty of information about, the entity. So we call every single character spawn, every single crowd character spawn into the scene is called a Golem entity or a crowd entity. So you'll have information about that entity. So you've got the entity type ID. So here it says my entity type ID for that character is 1. And that entity type ID can be found back as well into the entity type node. Right at the first attribute here, we can see the entity type ID and it's 1. So it means that that character belongs to that type. It's a green casual manlight character. It has an entity ID, which is a unique name. So it's a unique number, actually. It also tells you what's the speed of the character. So the character is moving at 1.19 meters per second. And it also shows you, mostly important, the different behaviors which are running for that character. For now, we just have one behavior. It's B motion shape. we can see which clip is being played by that character. So he's playing walk normal. If I'm clicking on another character, we can see he's playing walk slow. Maybe that guy is playing walk fast. So we can see exactly which motion is being played. So we can see for each character which motion they decide to pick. We can see what's the frame being played at the moment. So we're playing frame 16 from a motions of 26 frames. And we can see also what's the percentage of the animation which is controlling the posture. So we'll probably see later that we can mix animation and blend animations together. And that percentage will show you how much of the animation is seen into the final posture. Great. So I didn't get any new questions, so let's move forward. So let's go back into that motion behavior. So from the behavior editor, if you have been losing the selection, you can go back into your graph and select the motion behavior again. And now you can see the various options which are at our disposal. So first is the different motion clips we've been assigning to the characters. So we can see we've been assigning a walk fast, walk normal, and a walk slow. And we got those weird icons next to it. So the first icon, which is next to it, which looks like a half moon, which is lightened on the left side, it tells you which version of the animation is being played at the, which version of the animation you allow to play on your character. So when you get the left side moon, it means that you're playing the regular animation. Let's just say we click once on this icon here. You can see it inverts itself. And now we're saying that we are playing a mirrored version of the walk fast animation. So we're taking the walk fast animation and mirroring it. So rather than having left foot first, now we'll have right foot first. So we can just say, okay, that's the mirrored version of that animation I want to play. If I click a second time on that icon, you can see that that moon is now full. And what we've been doing is we've been saying to the system that we want to be able to play both the original animation of that clip and the mirrored version of that clip. So rather than having 3 different clips being assigned to our character, now we get a 4th one, which is the mirrored version of that walk fast animation. So that's a really simple way to bring variation to the system. Let's say you got non-symmetrical animation and you want to be able to have some characters playing it in one way and some playing it in a mirrored version. You can just click those twice, and now you're having 6 different animations. We can also control, let's say we want to add more variation as well. We can also control the start frame, the start percent of the animation. So one panel which is open is the start percent attribute. You can see by default is set up, the min and the max value are set up to 0, 0. So it means that every time we're gonna throw the simulation here, we're always gonna start at the first frame of the animation. Let's say we want to start at any time of the animation, we can change the max value to 1. So 0 means the start of the animation, 1 means the end of the animation. And now it means that we can start any time into the motion there. So if I want, once again, if I want to see the result of this, I can just throw the sim and launch it again. And by the way, the mirrored information will be displayed into the visual feedback. If you click on a character, that guy here, we can see he's playing walk slow and he's playing the mirrored version of that animation here. And even if we are at frame 2, we can see he's playing already frame 33 of an animation of 53 frames. So he's been starting at a different frame than before. So just once again, just a quick way to bring diversity. And final stuff we may want to do to bring diversity and play slightly with the parameters is we can also change the speed at which a motion is played. So if I got animators, in the room, they're probably gonna show their teeth. But yeah, we can change the speed ratio. I know that it's not always nice to do it because an animation has its own speed. But let's say you want to slightly change, how fast an animation is played. You can also change the ratio. So once again, it's at 1:1 by default. So we play motion at its identical ratio. If we want to slow it down, we just have to put some value below 1. If we want to speed it up, we can just put some value above 1. So I can just, slightly add 15% here, less and more. So I have some characters working, some animations slower. And once again, that's something you can see from the visual feedback. If you select a character, you can see it's playing the walk normal animation, which is played with a ratio of 0.99. So it's slightly slowed down. And it's playing frame 13, etc., etc., etc. So okay, let's play the same. And now we're having a character with slightly more diversity than we had before. So let's maybe end up that quick start tutorial with adding triggers and adding emergent behavior. We want to have some behavior triggered in some specific condition. So let's say that condition is going to be defined by a zone. So we can go into maybe the poly modeling tool shelf into Maya, and I'm going to create like a surface quickly, like a plane that I can just scale up. And what I would like to have is every time my entities are entering into that plane, I want them to play a different animation, or maybe I want to layer another animation on top of them. So the first thing I want to do is go back into my behavior. And well, I'm going to rename my behaviors as well. So I'm going to rename that motion behavior. I'm going to rename BE, which stands for behavior, and walk. So now I know that that's the behavior which is going to be dedicated to playing the walk animations. And if I want to layer a new animation, obviously I need to bring another behavior into the scene. So once again, that's the same behavior I want to use. So that's the motion behavior from which we're going to play another clip. So I'm going to take that motion behavior once again, bringing it into the flow. And I want that animation to be layered. So that's going to be the clip we're going to load is going to control only the arms, but the rest of the body will be controlled by the walking animation. So I want those two behaviors to play at the same time for some entities. So I want all of them to play the walking animation, but as soon as my entities enter the zone, I want their arms to be controlled by the new clip here. So as those two clips may end up being played at the same time, it means that I want those two behaviors to play at the same time. So how do you play two behaviors at the same time? By using something we call the parallel operator. So the parallel operator is part of the different operators being available here. So if you just hover the mouse above the third icon, we'll have those two, cylindric bars. And when I hover it, I got the tooltip, which is saying parallel run groups of behavior at the same time. How convenient! That's exactly what we need. So obviously we can drag and drop that, parallel operator, etc., etc. But we can connect. I mean, you can connect everything yourself if you like to. But there's also a quick tip I can share: is that if you put two behaviors on the same position, like here, I've got my new motion behavior, which is not connecting to whatsoever. If I drag and drop it, so I can drag and drop it, before. I can see now the arrow, which is before, is lighting up. I can also connecting after. That allows me to make transitions, like sequencing some animations. But let's say I want to play two behaviors at the same time. I can just put my second behavior on top of my first one. I can see the first one is now lighting up. And if I release my mouse at the moment the behavior is lighting up, it's going to create for me automatically that parallel operator that I had here before. So once again, let me just redo that operation. So you can drag and drop that motion behavior from the library here. And if I drag and drop that behavior on the same spot, then my walk animation, it's going to put them both into that parallel operator, which means that those two behaviors will be played at the same time. Let's rename that behavior once again. Let's call it BE, raise arms. Okay. And maybe also just a quick word about what's going on in terms of the outliner. You may notice that I've been, dragging some nodes around, and I've been deleting those guys. So I press the delete button, and every time I actually press the delete button, they actually appear into the outliner, but they appeared as italic. So italic means that they are being deleted from the container, but they are still available. So if you change your mind, it's kind of like a bean that you can bring your behaviors, resuscitate your behaviors back from it. So anytime, you've been deleting some stuff, you can just bring it back. Also, a quick word. I know that's not going to please you, but undo into the behavior editor is not a good idea. So refrain yourself to use the undo, mostly because every time we create a node, a lot of stuff are happening in Maya internally. So like we're creating a node, we're connecting it to the containers, we're connecting it to the arrows. So there's plenty of operation. And whenever you do undo, undo will just cancel one operation. So let's say 5 operations are being made for that node to appear and being shown into the behavior editor. If you just undo it once, it will probably break the scene, break the behavior. So you want to remove that behavior or whatsoever, or it's weird stuff happening. You just want to remove them and redo it by themselves. So for the moment, Maya does not provide us a way to pack those operations together. So this is why we can't really undo stuff. So if you made a mistake, rather delete those behaviors. They're going to be put into the outliner, but it's not a big deal, and just recreate them or recreate the connections. So as I said, you can, I already shared that tip before. If you want to remove a behavior from a parallel, you can just Alt left click. It will show the razor blade icon and you can remove it. That behavior will stick into a parallel. If, well, that doesn't change if it's just by itself into a parallel. That's the same thing than if the parallel was not here. If you want to reconnect it to the parallel, now you can just drag and drop it onto the parallel operator which exists. And if for some reason, you know, an arrow has been broken, you don't have that arrow anymore, you can just use the middle click button to draw arrows from the source to the destination. So with the middle click, you can just, you know, make any connection by yourself if by mistake you've been removing one of those. Okay. So now I've got my 2 behaviors being stacked on top of each other. So I've got my walk animation and my raise arm animation. So let's say we throw the sim, and obviously I made a mistake here. I didn't load any animation, but I just want to show you what happens if you made a mistake. So if you make a mistake, well, we try to be, you know, verbose about it. So the first thing you see is that you get an error into the script editor. So it's always a good thing to have the script editor being around and you know, checking what's going on. We show you the last error, but if you open the script editor, because here it tells you, you know, casual man type shape is incorrect, a child behavior has raised an error, so it doesn't tell you really exactly what's going on. So if you open the script editor, you'll see the full stack of errors. So if I move above, it tells me that within the parallel operator, a child behavior has raised an error. So let's go above. And finally, we got crowd motion, B raise arms. There are no motion files in the behavior, which makes sense because we didn't load any motion files so far. You also get errors in the behavior editor as a feedback. You can see that this icon here has got the forbidden sign next to it, which tells you that that behavior cannot run. So it's like critical error. We can't run your graph. And once, if you click on that errored behavior, you'll see into the status bar in the behavior editor that it tells you that there are no motion files into the behavior. So that's the exact same error that we've seen into the script editor. It also has that red outlines, which tells you what something went wrong. And you even see it into the outliner. Into the outliner, we can see the container, and that container tells you that that container is erroring, the parallel is erroring, and the raise arm animation is erroring. So it kind of brings you to what's the problem. So whenever you got something not working properly, it's always a good thing to go into the script editor and see if you've got an error which is telling you exactly what's going on. So yeah, there are no motion files, which makes sense. So let's bring a motion file. Once again, I can double click on that motion behavior. And I'm going to bring a motion from the audience directory. So you should be into the locomotion directory so far. So if you want to, you know, move up, I can browse up, go into the audience directory. And the animation I want to play here is going to be the casual underscore stand rising arm underscore 1, or whatever. You can even have load the 2 of them, but they are probably almost the same animation. So 1 and 2 here. Well, I'm just going to bring 1, but that doesn't make a difference. So yeah, I'm just going to load that motion here, open it. And now I should get rid of the error, but I should get a pretty weird behavior as well. So script editor, if you're not familiar with this, so I'm not sure if your Maya is configured the same way than mine, but I've got you know, the mail injector here. I've got my error bar, which is here, and next to the error bar, you have that window with you know, the brackets and the 2 dots, and that's the script editor. So it allows you to, you know, check what's going on and see the different logged error which have been provided. So, okay, so let's check what's going on here. So if you're not sure what's going on, it's probably a good idea to click on a character. And when you click on the character, you get, you know, the 2 different stuff running. So you can see the raise arm animation is running. And rather than before where the blue bar was full, now we can see it's half full. And it's telling you that raise arm is participating at 50% to the final posture. And the walk animation is participating at 50% to the final posture. So we're blending animations together. That blending is not really exactly what I need. You know that raising arm animations, well, let's check how does that animation should look like. So let's go back into my behavior editor. Let's go into the motion clip tab. So I can see all the motion clips I have in my scene. So I've got some orange one, which means that they are not assigned to anything because I've been, you know, drag and dropping behaviors around and didn't set anything within them. But I've got my different walk animations there. So my walk fast, walk normal, walk slow. So those are motion clips. I can see where's the file is coming from, some attributes about the motion. So how long it is, how much it moves, how much it turns, etc., etc. And for the stand rising arm, I can see it's 163 animations with a 30 FPS frame rate. And I also got a preview button. So I can get that preview button from either the attribute editor, or if I select the stand rising arm, I've got a play button at the bottom of the outliner. And if I click on any of those, it opens the motion clip preview. So it shows you how does that motion looks like. So it plays the motion loops upon it. And you can even pause it, change it, and see which frame you would like to see. You can get the same data which are here. So the duration of the animation, the frame rate, how much it moves, etc., etc. So that motion here is clearly a standing animation where with the feet not moving, like planted into the ground, and the arms really above the head swinging around. So which is not exactly what we're having right now. So what we're having right now is arms which are like kind of mid-height. So they're not really walking, they're not really raising arm, they're just blending animations together. So what we're having right now is the result of a walking animation being blended with my raising arm animation. So my walk animation brings my arms down and moves my feet. And my raising arm animation moves my arms up and have feet planted into the ground. So obviously we want to change a couple of attributes for that behavior to play properly. The first thing we probably want to do is to say that motion here, that raising arm animation, I just want to play it on the arms. So let's go into the behavior editor. Let's look at the raise arm animation. And let's open a panel which is closed at the moment, which is body mask attributes. So that's the first panel, it's closed, but we can expand it to see what we have and what we can control. So body mask attributes, it's a panel which is available on every single motion, which allows to control the posture of the character. So the motion behavior controls the posture. So it means that we can control exactly which part of the body we want to influence from that behavior. By default, we can see that all the attributes are filled with a star. So star is kind of the universal keyword to say everything. So star by default means we're going to control everything. So we can change those different attributes. So first, the pelvis is a checkbox because there's just one pelvis on the character. So do we need to control the pelvis of the character with that animation? So as this animation is not moving, well, we don't really need to control the pelvis, right? So I'm going to uncheck pelvis here. Do we need to control the spine? Well, we don't really need to control the spine. The spine is going to be controlled by the walk animation. I'm quite happy with that. So let's remove that star, and we don't need to put anything else into it. Then we've got the limbs. So the limbs, they are, you know, the arms, the head, the leg, whatsoever. So here, obviously, we want to provide the arms as an information. So we need to find what's the name of the left arm and the right arm. So to help us with this, if you expand your attribute editor, you may notice that you got a tiny icon on the right on it, which is a gray icon. It's looking like an helper window. And if you're expanding, well, if you're clicking on this, it will show you for that character what's available in terms of limb. So we can see that character has 5 different limbs. It has a head, left arm, left leg, right arm, right leg. If you've been picking another character, it will probably show you different stuff. So you want to select here the left arm and the right arm, because we just want this animation to play on the left arm and the right arm. So I'm selecting both using control to be able to control my, to concatenate my selection. And when I'm happy with this, I press on apply, and you can see it feeds your attribute with left arm, comma, right arm. You could have written this yourself as well, but here we've just been using the helper. Then you got effectors. So limb are going to be arms, legs, head. Effectors is going to be children of your arms, your legs, and your head. So it can be your fingers, your toes, the mouth, the eyes, whatever which is below a limb, a children of a limb. So here we want to have the hands being controlled by this animation as well. So I'm going to open the effector channels helper as well. And I'm going to check on what I have. So I've got 4 different effectors. I've got my foot, thumb, my left and middle, my right foot thumb, and my right and middle. So I'm going to select my 2 hands, left and middle and right and middle, and apply. So now I'm saying this behavior here is not going to control the pelvis, not going to control the spine, but it's going to control the left arm and the right arm. It's going to control the left hand and the right hand. So if we rewind the simulation again and play that sim, now we've got something which is better, at least for the legs. So we can see the legs are fully controlled by the animation, the walk animation, but still my arms are not completely raised up. So if I pay attention to this and open the visual feedback, we can see my rising arm is still being blended with my walk animation. So sure, what I can do is I can go into my walk animation and disable the arms. But if I do this, it means that when my characters, they are not playing the raising arm animation, because I want this animation to be played only when I'm in the zone. So when I'm not in the zone, it means that my arms will not be animated. So that's not really a convenient way of dealing with this. What I want to do instead is I want to say to this animation here, my raising arm animation, as soon as it plays, I want it to control more than 50% of the final blending. So let's see if we've got into the raising arm animation, raising arm behavior. Let's see if we've got more attribute that we can control. And actually, if we go a bit further, we've got a panel which is closed by default, which is called blending attributes. So blending attribute probably allows me to control how the blending is going to happen between multiple motions when I have multiple motions here. So let's open the blending attributes. It has a drop down, which is the blend mode, which is interpolation. We're not going to change that. And it's got a priority and weight attributes panel, which is once again closed by default. So let's open this. And now we can see we can control the weighting of that behavior. So, okay, let's say well, no need to do this on your side because it's not going to work. I just want to show you. Let's say we want to say, okay, this animation has way more control, way more blending weight on the final result. I can pump this down. Sorry, I can pump this up. But I can provide, like, let's say 10. But you can see that if you provide 10, it looks like the attribute is bounded to 1. So 1 means that here, and if we take a look on the walk animation, it has a weight of 0.5. So if we say that has a weight of 1, it means that it just has twice more weight on the final posture. So what we really would like to do is to say, okay, we don't want to blend at all with that walk animation. We really want to be this animation at a different level. When it plays, it doesn't even consider what else we have on the final poster characters. So to deal with this, we also got a priority slider. So this is something you really want to change. You may notice that the walk animation and the raise arm animation, they got the same priority. So if two or more than two, if multiple behaviors have the same priority, it means that they will be blended together according to the weighting system. If they've got different priority, the maximum priority will take control on the final posture, on the final bones. So it means that that raise arm animation, we want to just change that value and just make sure that it's higher than what we have into the walk animation. So if we just put 3, which is above the 2 we have into the walk animation. So if we put 3 for the raised arm and we rewind the sim and play the sim again, now we get exactly what we wanted. We've got a mixing of animation. We've got the raised arm animation, which is controlling the upper part of the body, and everything else is controlled by the walk animation. Great. So you may notice that all those clips, all those raising arm animations, they all synchronize all together. So as we've been doing so far with the walks, we can say we can mirror this animation. So we can change the mirroring options to make sure that we play animation from the original versions and the mirrored one. So now we see that guy is playing one version of the animation and that guy is playing the mirrored version of that animation. We can change the start frame so they can, start the animation anytime in the motion duration, so they can be shifted, offsetted. And once again, we can go into the speed ratio and just slow that motion slightly down and put it slightly up. So now I've got a bit more diversity. Great. But still, we haven't really done what we wanted from the beginning, which is we want to start that motion only when my characters get into the zone. And the whole point of doing this is to introduce triggers. So we've been playing with behaviors, but really setting up the brain, the intelligence of your character is about scheduling behaviors and starting them or stopping them with triggers, controlling them with triggers. So, okay, let's now start that animation only when my characters enter that polygon zone I've been creating. So let's save the scene. And let's go back into my behavior editor once again. So you may have noticed that in addition to the behaviors being green, you also got, well, as soon as you click on a character at least, and you ask for a visual feedback, you may also have noticed that the arrow on the left side, there's a tiny arrow on the left side, which is also green. And you may notice that the one on the right side is not green at all. If I unclick on a character, we can also see that that arrow, we can hover above it. And apparently that's something we can control. So this is what we call the triggers. So on the left side of a behavior, so every single behavior gets a trigger on the left side and on the right side. So on the left side, it defines what is the condition under which this behavior will start. And the one on the right side defines what is the condition under which this behavior will stop. Because we haven't really, set up when does that behavior start, when does that behavior stop, and still in the behavior and the simulation, we can still the characters moving and playing that animation again and again. So how do we control this? If I double click on any of those arrows you have, it's going to open for you automatically the trigger editor. And mind yourself is that every time you click on it, it's going to create a new tab. So make sure that, the tab you can really, sorry about that. There's the automatic program for the window to close down. It's at 8 p.m. and I kind of forgot about it. I need to bring the light. Okay. It can be kind of scary if you don't know about it. So sorry. Yeah, it's to protect myself from zombie apocalypse. True. Where we were. Yeah, triggers. Sorry about that. So yeah, mind yourself, every time you double click on the trigger, it's going to open a tab. So you may, really messed up with whatever you are controlling at the moment. So really make sure that you tidy that place often and close those when you don't need those. So I'm going to close them down. So you've got an arrow on the left side, which decide under which the condition under which it's going to start. So let's check, when does that behavior start? So let's click on a starting trigger. And if I click on the starting trigger, I can see I end up with something which has a T and an F icon, and it has a true name here. So if we click on that guy here, so that's a trigger node. So I can click on it. It has some attributes, not so many, but we can see the type of that trigger. It's called the trigger Boolean. So Boolean means that it just returns two different values, true or false, 1 or 0. And it has a checkbox that I can check and uncheck. And when I check and uncheck, that just changes the value from true to false. So it's basically saying, am I allowed to start? So, when the simulation starts, you have to see this. Probably the right analogy for the behavior graph is that it's kind of an electrical system. When you start the simulation, it puts some electricity through the flow. That flow, when it goes to a parallel, it will just split amongst the different entries. And then every time you've got a trigger, it's like it's a interrupter into your system. So you can just decide if you want to turning on or turning off. So when the signal comes to here, it tells, am I allowed to start? So the default trigger for starting a behavior always returns true. So it always returns yes. So it means, the electricity comes in the behavior and asks right away, can I go out? So let's check what we have into the stopping trigger. So into the stopping trigger, we also got the exact same trigger. We got the true false icon, but you can see its default value is set up to false. So can I go out? And the answer is always no. So while it's no, it means that that behavior will run until it turns to true, but that trigger will never turn to true. So this is why that behavior is still playing again and again and again and again. So that's going to be our duty here, to decide when does that behavior start, when does that behavior stop, and define what are the conditions under which it's going to start and stop. So let's go into the starting trigger of my raising arm animation. Let's open it. It's true by default. And let's check what we have in terms of triggers. So let's first job you're having here is, let's say we want to connect it to a polygon. Which trigger we should use? So let's fetch the library. If you've got the tooltips activated, you can check what are the different messages, and let me know which trigger would look convenient to you. Blue grid, the polygon zone, the third one. So blue grid looks like to be the third one, and apparently looks like to be the polygon zone as well. So yeah, polygon zone is probably a good candidate here. So they work exactly the same way behavior works. So you have to drag them from the library to the workspace. You can't drop a trigger into the behavior space. You can't drop a behavior into the trigger space. They're really like, triggers go here, behaviors go there, and they all live into their own world. So what I want to do is use indeed the polygon zone. I'm going to drag it and drop it here. You may notice that it's slightly transparent, but here I don't have that behavior flow because it's not behavior, it's a different stuff. So if I want to actually enable that zone, make it active, I need to either right click on it and set and say I want to set it as root. So if I set it as root, you may see that that blue arrow moved from the true trigger to that 2D zone. So now that's the trigger which becomes active. Or you can even press the V key. V is for view, and view means that you want to evaluate that actual node here. So yeah, if you want to change it just with the key, that's going to be just a V key, or right click, set as root. So why do we have this mechanism? It's because you can build some pretty complicated triggers and sometimes you want to evaluate only a sub part of it. So it can be convenient to isolate part of the triggers to saying which part of the trigger you want to evaluate. And that's exactly what the root set as root is made for. So, okay, we've got our 2D Polygon trigger, so that's great. And once again, it's a Maya node, so it has my attribute into the attribute editors. So we can see we've got a polygons mapping zone, apparently, where we can probably drop our polygon. We can decide if it's a 2D or a 3D zone. So here we're using a plane, so that's a surface, so we can do just a 2D trigger. And then we've got options. Is the mesh being deformed? Should we consider if the mesh is being hidden? So really up to you here. So what we want to do is actually being able to connect the polygon from the viewport to the trigger from the behavior editor. And the trick to be able to select both is first to select the zone in the viewport, so or in the outliner. So you can select your zone, your polygon. If you got many polygons, you can just also select multiple polygons if you want to. If you press the Shift key, go into the behavior editor and select your polygon zone trigger. It will keep the selection. So you can see my plane is still selected. My polygon zone is selected as well. So first is really you select the polygon from Maya, hold the Shift key, then select the polygon zone to keep your selection. And if you press the map button from the attribute editor, now you get your plane being connected into it. You can unmap it. If you select your plane, you can press unmap and it will unmap it, or you can just, if your selection is still there, you can map it into this. So I'll do the manipulation again. So first, clear your selection, make sure you don't have anything selected. First, select your polygon zone. Then go into the behavior editor, press Shift, select your 2D zone using the Shift key at the same time, and just map it all two together. And now you've got your geometry being mapped into your trigger zone. So now if we throw the simulation, we can see that all the characters are playing the walking animation, but only the characters which are in the zone or entering the zone are blending in with that clip. So you can see some characters from the beginning, from frame 1, they play that animation. That's because they are into the zone. And the others are just, living their life. And once again, triggers can be visually seen with the visual feedback. If I select a character, I can see if he's playing the raising arm animation. So yeah, that guy is going to play the raising arm animation, but let's rewind the simulation slightly. Let's check. Maybe a guy who will enter the zone at some point. Who's going to enter the zone? Yeah, okay, well, that guy here is going to enter the zone. So if I select, a character like that one here, so you see right now it's playing the walking animation. So this is why it's full green. And you can see the raise arm animation is blue. So blue means it's waiting to start. So it's evaluating the fact it can be started. So right now, as it's blue, it means that for now, the starting trigger is not successful. And as soon as the character will enter the zone, you'll see that your triggers will turn green, which means that it's allowed to go through it. So now it's green. And now you can see that the raising arm animation turns green, which means that it's starting. And you can see now the character is playing the animation. So you can visually debug your triggers as well if you make a complicated trigger graph and you want to see exactly what's going on. You can even see what's going on in terms of triggers. So I hope that makes sense. So what about, let's take a look at what's going on when the characters leave the zone. So let's play the sim. And you can see here that character leaves the zone. And maybe that's not something you have expected. Maybe you want them to stop raising their arm as soon as they are in the zone. So when something that you don't expect happens, you can still, click on the character and see what's going on. So, okay, the character here is playing a walk animation and a raise arm animation. That's what I can see into the viewport. but for some reason, it's not stopping. So yeah, obviously it's not stopping because it's waiting for the stop trigger to define what's the condition under which my behavior should stop. And the default stopping trigger for my raising arm animation is still the default trigger that we had, which is false. So false means that it never stopped. So obviously we can change that if we want to. We can say, okay, after playing the animation twice, I want to stop. After getting out of the zone, I want to stop. When I collide with a character, I want to stop. So there are plenty of conditions, but the starting trigger and the stopping trigger, they are fully independent. So it's really up to you to decide when does that start, when does that stop, and it's not because you've been starting a behavior because you're in the zone that it's going to stop when you're going to leave the zone. So you really have to, wrap your mind around that kind of stuff. Okay, let's maybe improve that starting trigger. Let's say I just want 50% of my characters entering the zone to play that animation. So I want to change my trigger to also be influenced by some random percentage. So again, second assignment is, let's say you want to bring some randomness into the game. Which trigger you would like to use? Oh, and there are even some people who are proposing operators. So first answers I'm getting is dice, first one, random and polygon zone. Yeah, that's the right answer. So let's close the visual feedback for now. Let's bring the dice. So the dice is the first icon into the triggers. And if I hover my mouse up on it, it tells random return true based on a random percentage. So that's exactly what we are needing. So I'm going to drag and drop that trigger. I can just put them next to each other. And you can see right now it has a 0% chance of turning true. So that's not exactly what we want. So we want to change that value first. So, and you can see it's grayed out. So we have to find a way to trigger it in. So first thing is I want to specify my percentage of chance that my character will turn true. So I just wanted half of my crowd to turn true. So I'm going to provide 50%. And also something which is super important is that I want to turn off the is dynamic. So what does that is dynamic do? Is that every frame is gonna change the actual 50% being concerned by that trigger. So if you specify 50%, it means that after 2 frames, 3 frames, actually all the characters will turn true. If you uncheck it, it means that we're gonna pick one set of characters, half of them, and it's never going to change. If you check it, it's going to change at every frame. So if I uncheck it, now I'm saying, okay, I'm just picking 50% of my crowd. Let's see if that works. Let's enable that trigger by default. Let's set it as root. So now I'm saying 50% of my crowd will play that animation, and it's not going to be related with the zone anymore because the zone, it's grayed out. So if I throw the sim now, independently from the zone, you can see, well, I will not count each of them, but you can see that probably 50% of my crowd are now raising their hands, where the other half is not. So I bring diversity, and that was exactly what I needed. But the thing is, I want to be able to combine those 2 triggers together. And well, the answer has already been provided. So we're going to use operators here. So operators can be used to combine triggers together. And what we want, the way we want to combine them is we want to make sure that the 2 conditions are true at the same time. So we want to be in the zone and be part of those 50%. And the keyword I stressed when I said that phrase was end. So I really want to have those 2 triggers being true at the same time. So if I look into the operators, fortunately, the first one is called end operator. And if I order it with the mouse, you can see it tells you that it returns true if all the previous entries, if all the previous triggers returns true. So it's a way to combine and make sure that all the previous operations are true. So if you want to connect that AND operator, you can use your middle click middle click button of your mouse and drag from the trigger to the operator and the other trigger to the operator. So you're saying, okay, I want to evaluate, it's kind of, you're making a condition tree. So we're going to evaluate that end operator, and that end operator is made of those two conditions. And those two conditions is being into the zone and being part of the first 50% being sorted. And now if I throw the sim, I've got my characters playing, well, raising their arms only when they're in the zone, and only 50% of them is raising their arms. And if I click on a character, let's say that guy here, is clearly into the zone. And if I check the visual feedback, I can see it's clearly into the zone. So we can see that that trigger returns true, but is not part of the 50%. So it's not, you know, it's not raising his arm because it's not part of the 50%. So this is why he's not playing that click here, that behavior. Great. So hopefully that makes sense. We're slightly late. I actually wanted to be able to go through rendering before making the break, but we're going to leave that for after the break, actually. So maybe, well, if you got questions, let's take maybe 5 minutes to address them. And after, we'll take a 15-minute break and resume the session and go into rendering and make our actually stadium. Don't forget to put your stadium, your questions into the Q&A panel instead of the chat box. So it doesn't, you know, mess up and we don't lose it, and we know that it's been answered. Exit from Polygon trigger stop. Can you please quickly show that? Sure, I can do that. And so to turn it off, just do the reverse on the right side trigger to the exit. Okay, so that's twice the same question being asked. So while I'm doing this, you can actually keep pushing questions, put them into the Q&A. So let's say we want to stop that behavior as soon as we exit the zone. So, and that also going to answer Haley question, which is we're going to connect the zone actually on top of it. Oh, and by the way, just also a quick note, visual int. You can see the triggers. Let's unclick everything. You can see the triggers. Most of them have their initial style. So they're like a dark blue in the inside and they're aligned with gray, except that guy here. So when you got a full plain trigger, it means that it's not the default trigger anymore. It means that it has changed and we've been modifying it. So it's also a good hint to figure, okay, this trigger has been changed and now I can check what's in it. Yeah, so that's just a hint that it has been modified and it's not the default trigger anymore. So let's say we want to change the stop trigger and say they're gonna stop as soon as they output. What we need to change is the stop trigger. So I'm gonna open the stop trigger. The default parameter, the default condition is false. So what I want to do is say, okay, I want to check if I'm not in the zone. So not in the zone means I need the zone. So let's bring the zone. And let's set it as root. I'm going to map my plane within that trigger. So once again, clear selection, select your polygon, hold shift. And once you hold shift, you can select from the behavior editor your 2D zone. It will keep the selection. So if you hold shift while having first the polygon, then the trigger, you can press the map button and it will connect that plane here. And here, if we just resume with this, I will not see my characters raising their arms because I'm saying you stop that motion when you are in the zone. And obviously, as they start when they are in the zone, for one frame, that motion will play and we will not see it. So what we want to do is to say, when you're not in the zone, I want to invert the result of that behavior, of that trigger, sorry. And once again, if we pay attention to the different operators that we have, there's one which is called not. And if I overlay this with the mouse, I can see it invert the result of the previous trigger. So all convenience. Let's plug it. It's an operator. So once again, I can connect it to my 2D zone. And now I'm saying when I'm not in the zone, I want to stop that behavior. Let's see how it looks like. Now you get your characters hanging their arms, and as soon as they go out, they just stop playing that clip. Now you're good. Another question, which is holding, I guess that 50%, oh, it's been answered. Or is it? No, it's not. I guess the 50% is applied on the whole crowd, not on the ones that enter the zone. Is it possible to do so? Yeah, 50% is applied on the whole crowd, but statistically, it means that it also applied on half of the people who will enter the zone. So that's actually exactly the same to express that. So yeah, that shouldn't make any difference actually. One more question: the operators below the behaviors parallel, etc., can they be used into the trigger editor? No, they can't. Really, operators which are here are only to hold with behaviors, and you'll see that they really like design for the behaviors, because that's action you can only do with behaviors. There's no, there's no meaning to play in parallel to triggers, because triggers don't play, but just execute at every frame. Like there's no way to have randomization of the trigger being played. That's something you can even do with the random trigger. So only the operators which are here can be played into the behavior zone. Only the operators which are there can be played within the trigger editor. Great. So yeah, the course is recorded, and you guys get the link. If you've been subscribing to the Academy, you'll get the link tomorrow probably, if you got the chance to put it on YouTube. So it's 2022 at the moment. So let's meet back at 2035. So that's going to be in 13 minutes. See you there. Well, so Gila, I'm just answering like off list to your questions. The if you could like emulate it with the or operator. So like or operator allows you to check if at least one previous triggers returns true. So it's kind of if else, if else, if else. So it's trying to look at what's the first entry. But I'll think about it if there are many maybe other operators we want to bring into the triggers. Yeah, see you in a minute. Okay. Let's go back to where we were. Before I get started, any questions or doubts or anything? I just let a couple of seconds for the people to have a chance to come back to the desk. And we're gonna wrap up the quick start and try jumping into Stadium. Excellent. So okay, let's move on. Let's move forward. So in terms of behaviors, that's probably more or less what I wanted to do with it. Obviously, there are plenty of different behaviors, and we're going to tackle some of those in the next day. Obviously, the graph we've been doing here is pretty simple, and you can do some pretty crazy stuff with it. So either in terms of behaviors or in terms of triggers. But we'll have a chance to see more of those when we're going to tackle armies and so on and so forth. So let's say we'd like to bring this to the next level. So let's say we're happy with the simulation. It kind of doing almost what we need. And we'd love to be able to render those crowds or bring them to another DCC, let's say Unreal or whatsoever. So we're gonna move out from the behaviors. So that was the behaviors tools, and there are a couple of way more advanced tools here. We're probably gonna play with those on Thursday as well when we're gonna tackle armies. And let's say we need to bake those crowds out. We need to move forward in the shelf, and especially on that tool here, which is called the simulation exporter. So you can see a walking character with a cache next to him with a orange arrow. And if I open that tool, that opens the simulation exporter. So the simulation exporter allows you to bake the simulation results in a simulation cache. So the simulation cache will not be geometry, it will be a Golaem cache, which will contain the actual postures of the characters. So it means orientation, position, and scales of bones. And also blend shape animations if you got any, and put them into a file which will be compressed. And afterwards, we'll have a full series of tools which will allow us to see how's that cache looking like and throw that into rendering. And we're also gonna take some couple of minutes to make sure it will render properly on most of your workstations. So simulation exporter allows you to see which crowd you'd like to export. We haven't really spoke about simulation nodes, but we're just having one simulation right now into the scene, which is represented by that node called the crowd field. I haven't really spoke about those, but probably have a chance a bit later. So this is the simulation we'd like to export. If you had multiple simulation, you'll see them and you'll be able to break the export into multiple passes if you like. You got your cache name, which will fit the name of your scene, but you can change it if you want. You got your end frame, start frame, end frame. So here I've got 1,500 frames. So I'm going to reduce this to maybe 200. So this is what you want to, which time range you'd like to export. And additional attributes you'd like to export. We're going to stick with the default attribute list. And finally, you've got the directory where you'd like to export those. So I've set up my project into a specific directory. So it's going to write into my project into an export directory here, and the name of my scene and a cache subname. So, and at the end here, you've got two buttons, batch export. So batch export is going to create a file you can use on a farm to use Maya batch and batch export the simulation. Let's say your simulation is super, super, super heavy and you don't want to use the artist workstation to do it. You can just export the corresponding file you can batch out, which is not something we want to do here. We want to press the regular export button. Pressing the regular export buttons will run the simulation for you and will write the simulation results into a cache. So let's speak about the cache maybe quickly. Oops. So I'm just gonna check what's been exported in terms of files. So I end up with a directory with which I've got a fair amount of files here. So the way you read those is they've got the name of the cache name you've been providing into the editor, the name of the simulation node which corresponds to the simulation which has been exported, dot the number of the frame. You will notice that the number of the frame starts at 2. It starts at 2 because at frame 1, this is where you rewind the simulation, so you don't get anything at frame 1. You need to update and go from frame 1 to another to actually see the results of your crowd. So simulation always starts at start frame plus 1. So if you want to have frame 1 as a cache, you need to start at frame 0. So you need to offset this properly with the manager and so on. And you got 1 file per frame. Those files, you can see they're pretty low in terms of memory footprint. They're just a couple of hundreds of kilobytes on my side for an amount of 500 characters. And if I check below, I also have, so they have the extension GSCF, which stands for Golaem Simulation Cache Frame. And we also have a file, a unique file, which is not related to a frame, which has an extension called GSCS, so Golaem Simulation Cache Simulation. So that's everything which is related to that simulation, unique simulation, the crowd field 1, it's stored into that file here, which is the number of entities, the number of bones of the entity types, and so on and so forth. And we also got a library file. We'll tackle that a bit later as well. So yeah, you can see it's pretty low memory footprint here. And as soon as you've been exporting your simulation cache, you end up with your timeline being colored by the color of your cache node. So now, instead of going always back to frame 1, you can actually move in time freely and play back your simulation cache. So you can see your simulation results. So quick word about this. You may notice on my side, I've got a heads-up display called Golaem mode. So, it's a regular heads-up display. You can, I'm not sure if it's enabled by default or not, but if it's not enabled and you want to have it, you can go into display in Maya, heads-up display, and you probably have at the bottom of your heads-up display something called Golaem details, and that just allows you to turn it up, turn it on or off. So it tells you Golaem mode is in cache replay. So cache replay means that you are actually replaying the cache. So your timeline gets green. And also within the shelf, you probably haven't noticed, but the icon right before the lock looks like a character walking with a cache. And if I just hover my mouse above it, it tells you, so it allows you to show what's the simulation mode and to toggle between Golaem simulation and cache replay. So let's say you need to change the simulation. For some reason, you want to, remove that raise arm animation. Obviously, if you check your cache, that cache hasn't taken that option into account. So let's say you want to go back into sim. You need to press that icon, and pressing that icon will toggle back between simulation, cache replay, simulation, cache replay. So every time you press on that icon, it allows you to change the context in which you are. If you click on it, you can see your timeline becomes gray. So it means that it's not cached anymore. And also the Golaem mode says that you are in simulation. And if you're in simulation, now you need to rewind back to frame 1 and play the simulation to see the results. So you can see I've been unplugging the raising arm animation, so I don't get it anymore. But if I go back to cache replay, now I have it because that's what has been exported before. So what you see here is the last versions of the cache which has been exported. So the last version of the cache which has been exported was with my arm being raised. So this is why in my cache, I can see my rising arm. Great. So when I'm into that state, you can see that also that icon is not grayed out anymore. So that's before, you can see it's grayed out. And when I'm in cache replay, it's not grayed out anymore. And if I check what icon is this, you can see it's the check scene settings. and actually the tooltips is not correct. It's actually yeah, I need to fix this. You might Alex to write this down. The tooltip of the icon is not correct. Okay, I'll fix that for the next version. So that's actually the render checker. So it's actually checking for rendering parameters and if everything is correct. So let me throw it. And it's going to tell me that first, my renderer, which is Maya software, is not supported. So I have to roger that. But if you got, so I need to probably change my rendering engine. Render using, huh. Oh, okay. That's probably why I don't get the shaders, is because Arnold is not installed on that session. Okay, gotcha. So, okay, well, if you're having your rendering engine being installed and properly set up, you need to set it up by, say to Maya, you want to use that rendering engine. So first pick the rendering engine. So you're going to say, okay, I want to render using Arnold. And if you open that checker again, it will tell you if everything is correct in terms of shaders, caches, and so on and so forth. So let me maybe start. I have to start. Yeah, I've got, I've got pipeline tools, which are actually loading M2A and Arnold for me. So as I was using a vanilla Maya here, this is why I'm not able to access it anymore. So let me just throw them. Where is my toolbar? I've got multiple screens and not really sure where they are. Yeah, here. Okay, I'll just launch Maya again on my side. Here. Okay, so with M2A here. Well, don't care too much about this. I just want to show you how it looks like when you got a rendering engine being correctly loaded. So let me save the scene, and I'm gonna open it from the other Maya sessions that I have. Great. Probably this one has Arnold loaded. Great. And this one has a license, so this is why I don't have the lock anymore. So okay, let's dive into my Academy file. Sorry about that. But well, short word is, if it tells you that everything is correct, you got a yes everywhere, except on the PLE. Obviously, because you don't have a license, it will tell you that your file has been tagged as PLE. You can actually press render and see how it's going to look. So let's open that Quickstart from my side here. Let's check. Yeah, obviously it's still Maya software being selecting. So let's go into render using Arnold, and I need to bring a light in. So it's going to tell me the shaders I'm missing, but yeah, that's expected. And I'm going to reject that. So I got yes everywhere except for the shaders. So I'm going to reject that. And if you got no, like your versions of Arnold is not supported or whatsoever, we're going to tackle this. So let's create a light and let's try to render. And yeah, hopefully I got my characters as the shaders are not valid. I don't get the shaders yet. So, okay. Best case scenario here is that I've got a version of Arnold which is fully supported by my system. So when I throw the launcher, it's telling me, okay, the manager node is okay, and so on and so forth. And specifically, you got a panel which is dedicated to render specific settings. And on my side, it tells me that this version of Arnold is supported. Yes. Let's say you got a no on your side. You have to dig into the script editor. And the script editor will tell you which version of Arnold you are using, what you're adding into your scene, and what you need to do. So here, for example, if we go back into the release notes that we were checking before, and we check for the versions that we have. So we're having 8.1.3. This is the version I'm running right now. If I go into supported rendering engine, I can see that by default, we are supporting M2A 5.0.x. If I check within my Maya session, go into Windows, Plugin Manager, and go into M2A, I'm actually using 5.0.0.4. So that means that the versions I'm having here is fully supported. So that's expected and that's all good. let's say you're not lucky here and you're not using that version, you've got another chance, which is here also supported, but must be manually installed. And now you can see we've got a chance to also support M2A 4.2.x, but it has to be manually installed. So let's assume that you are using 4.2.x and you're getting a no next to your version of the rendering engine. If you check into the script editor, it will tell you that here you need to edit a specific file. It would provide you the path to that file, and it will tell you exactly which part of the file you need to change. So specifically, the file is going to be into your Maya settings or whatsoever, but let me just show you how it's supposed to look. So please check the path of the file, which is returned by the script editor and not the one I'm editing on my side. But if we go into 813, Maya 2020, where is it? Oh, it's within C. That's the one here. So it will tell you to edit a specific file. So once again, do not take the one I'm editing. When you are asking Maya to be able to load the plugin automatically, it's install that file in a different location. And if you open that file here with a block like a text editor, you will see a couple of variables here, and it will tell you need to change that number at the end. So here I'm using M2A5, which means it's Arnold 7.0. So I'm correct, but Golem also support Arnold 6.0 or 6.2. So you can modify those from 7.0 to 6.2. But once again, you just have to follow the rules which are set up into your system, set up into the script editor. So I invite you to check exactly what's going on into that script editor. Follow. You even have some tutorials which are regarding this. And if you're not able to manage this, I'm not going to tackle this because we're kind of late. If you're not able to tackle this, go on the Discord and ask for support. We'll be happy to assist you. And we even have like videos, like step-by-step videos on our website, tutorials which are actually explaining exactly how to tackle those, what to change, and whatsoever. So yeah, are there some people who are actually able to get some characters being rendered? Just to say a yes or a +1 or whatsoever into the chat box, just to know if mostly you guys have versions which are supported or not at all. Okay, some of you actually are lucky enough to have their characters. So yeah, if you're using, so two ways, two possibilities. We support a main version and a manual version as well. But obviously, if you're not in that list, if you're using Arnold 5.1.1, for example, which has been recently released, we're not supporting it yet. So you need to downgrade to that version. If you're using another version that Redshift, you have to downgrade to that specific version as well. So yeah, we're a small company, and it's kind of a pain to juggle with all the different versions of the rendering engine. So we try to stay up to date, but we also have to comply with what our customers are using. But yeah, if you can downgrade or find, it can be Redshift or VMware or Arnold, they let you have access to previous versions pretty easily. So if you have a license of those, you can go back to those, and that should work out of the box. Okay, so I'm gonna stop with the quick start, and because we already are kind of late, and I really wanted to tackle like a Stadium side of things and see how we can set up a couple of behaviors for Stadium. It will really look like what we've been doing so far. We'll be layering animations on top of those, and play nice animations. So let's close that, save that scene for a reference. Yeah, it's asking me to save the layout, and I haven't spoke about the layouts. Oh, and yeah, true. Now that we wrapped up the quick start, you get a poll, which will just allow us to know how far you were able to go. So yeah, if you're not following the session actively, if you don't put your hands on Maya, you're just watching it, you can just use the I did not try options. But yeah, that just to allow us to know if we went too fast or not that fast. well, a fair amount of you guys were able to actually get the simulation working properly, but yeah, okay, rendering was an issue. So maybe in the next session, I'll start by showing you how you can change your settings if you guys were not able to get through it. Regarding shading, do not pay too much attention to it for now. Shading is broken on my side as well. We're going to try to speak about shading because it can be a tricky part. So we're going to go through shading probably in the next session. Great. So I'll let the poll running. And yeah, let's save that scene. Put it into demo. Up. Let's say it's here. Okay, great. And well, let's start with a blank new scene. So yeah, I've got questions about rendering black and orange, shading related. So probably black means that you didn't let the installer finish his job. So you had the command line window, and maybe you skip it, or maybe the texture are broken in some manner, or maybe the shaders are loaded. So we'll probably tackle this at the beginning of the next session, the shading. Also, I've got questions regarding Arnold working, but then I wish to switch to use RenderMan. How do I do that? We're actually agnostic to the rendering engine which is used. If you are having Arnold, Arnold is going to process the scene, and we have a plugin for Arnold. It will be called automatically. If you switch to RenderMan, the same will go. So it will switch automatically, and Golaem is just agnostic. It's just the RenderMan plugin, which will be called instead of the Arnold plugin. The only difference is that obviously shaders, they're really related to a rendering engine. Like an auto shader will not work with a RenderMan shader. So you have to switch shaders around, but not a big deal. But yeah, that doesn't make a difference for us. We're just, having procedural crowds. So they're just generated at render time, whatever the rendering engine, as soon as it's supported, is used. So, okay. Yeah, a fair amount of you guys were able to set up your scene, so that's great. A lower amount were able to get it rendered, but still. But so yeah, let's move into, we'll fix the rendering part and the shading part a bit later. Don't worry about this. But I just want to, move to the next chapter, which was trying to make a stadium. We've got an hour left, so that should be more than sufficient. We probably will have to skip the latest part, which was making the typo with the texture, but I'll probably make a tutorial regarding this if any of you want to know more about how to do this. So let's make a stadium. I'm not really good at modeling, so let's not spend too much time on this. I'm just gonna bring a plane. I'm gonna add as many polygons as I need, and just keep in mind that at the end of the day, each polygon will have to hold a character. So let's make your tessellation in the way that each face of that polygon will be big enough to hold a character. If you're not sure what big enough means, you can still bring a cylinder in your scene, put it a radius of 0.3, a height of 1.8. So 0.3 means your character are going to be 60 centimeters wide, which is more or less my wide. And 1.8 means a meter is 80 centimeter. So that gives you, a sense of how big the characters are going to be if we stick with the default unit, which is meters. So yeah, let's bring that plane in, and we're just going to make a small part of the stadium. So I'll let you, a couple of minutes to figure this on your own. So I'm just going to make it. Well, I'm not really good with modeling, so this is kind of the best I can do here. Yeah. Okay. And well, let's make it maybe bigger to be able to hold more characters. Okay. Kind of something like this. Okay. And well, I can even rotate that plane slightly to really look like a stadium. Great. And I'm going to save the scene. Yeah, okay. 0, 1B. Yeah. Great. Okay. So yeah, I'll let a couple more seconds. So in that scene, contrary to the previous one, we're gonna bring more than one entity type in the scene. We're gonna bring men and women characters. So we'll have two entity types to handle. Also we're gonna trigger a specific behavior. So I'm pretty sure we'll have the time to make the Mexican wave. And the Mexican wave will be controlled by a polygon zone that we can trigger. So sorry, that we can keyframe. So we're gonna keyframe a zone which will move under my characters. And anytime that zone comes in, my characters will play a Mexican wave animation. So I'm gonna assume that you guys had a chance to create a kind of stadium, even if it's not, final geometry. We don't really care. We will be able, to resnap this to another terrain later. So first thing I want to do, as always, is to import my entity types into my scene. So once again, I'm going to use the entity type node button into the shelf, the icon with the white guy and the orange guy. And I'm going to take, maybe this time I can switch from the casual man light to the regular casual man. So I'm gonna open that guy here. It's gonna ask me once again to bring the shaders. If the shaders didn't work for you before, you can just cancel that step. If it worked, then you can bring them in. So casual man here, I'm using Arnold, so I'm gonna bring the casual man AR, so stands for Arnold, into the scene and press open. So it's gonna bring into the scene origin, my actual character. So once again, it has created, a behavior directory that's created the manager. The manager is set up to meters, so that's all good. I'm going to rename my entity type here. I'm going to call it man type, for example. So it's going to be green. And let's bring, as I said, we want to bring two different types of characters. So let's bring another type of character. Let's create another type by clicking that button again. And this time we're going to load the casual woman Golem character file. So from the character pack, Golem characters, let's take the casual woman. And once again, if you want to bring the shaders in, just pick the casual woman _ Arnold file. Okay, so both are at the scene origin, and let's rename that new node which has been created. So you can see that node now has a different color. One was green. The new one is blue, so I'm going to rename this woman type. Great. And now I've got my man and woman characters, which are, listing different character files. Great. So far, so good. So as we did before, next step when we've been populating the scene with the type is to populate the scene with positions and orientation of the initial setup. So here, once again, I'm going to open the behavior, the population tool. If I double click on it, it's a tool, so it allows me to show the different options. And well, for sure, I can use the grid stuff, and I can try to align my characters on the grid. But as I said, I ask you guys to be able to create, to make polygons, so each polygon will hold a character. So we're going to try to benefit from this. So what we'll do, so let's take a look what options we have. So especially if there's one within the populate in selection panel, the first one, if I put my mouse above it, it tells me that I can create particles on selected objects or components. So within Maya, components can be, faces, vertices, edges, they can be full objects. So if I want to use faces, I can go, within Maya with face component mode. I think it's F11. Yeah, F11 allows you to select your faces. So you can pick the faces you'd like to populate, and every selected face will end up with one character, or one or more, actually. So yeah, let's pick the faces you'd like to select. Let's say I don't want to have those faces here at the bottom, and I don't want to have those faces there. So I can fine tune what's going on here. And with that selection being active, I can double click on the population tool to open the population panel. you can see that now I've got my two types, my man type shape, my woman type shape. And if I click on the first icon of the Populate in Selection button, you'll see that you'll end up with one slot, one position orientation being generated for your actual selection. So they're all like fully aligned. Obviously, we'll be able to change this afterwards. But from the face selection, you've been creating those characters. Notice that there's no connection between the geometry and between the population tool. So you really want to make sure that you got your face being selected properly. And if you forgot some faces, you actually have to delete the population tool and recreate it, because once again, there's no connection between the two data there. So, okay. Here are my characters. You can see, well, compared to before, we've got two colors. We've got green color and the blue color. So that's my repetition between men and women. And as I was saying, they are like fully aligned. So let's maybe also change this slightly. And they're not, or in my situation here, they're not oriented into the right direction. So let's see how we can fix this. So the first thing is I want to provide some distance, because I want to be to have access to the noise parameters. So I'm going to provide some distance for my crowd, which is the maximum distance that I'm allowing them to noise them. So I'm just providing some noise value here to just make sure that they are not aligned anymore. Right? Having something more organic, I guess. I can change my orientation as well to make them all facing the same direction. Or also, just a quick tip is, when you do a stadium, you probably, here I just have one part of the stadium, but you're probably going to have round part, or you may have, the other side of the stadium. And you don't want to provide, obviously, if you provide the same angle to everybody, they're going to look into the same direction. But when it comes to a stadium, you want them to all look to a specific point, to a specific like 3D position. So let's say you want all the characters to face a specific position rather than using the orientation, which is moving all the characters with the same value. You may have noticed that you've got a look at attributes, and the look at attribute can be mapped to an object. So here, what is expected is actually a locator. So if I go into Maya, you can into the create menu, you can go into create, and you probably have access to the locator create tool. And the locator is just, as the name tells, it's just a holder. It's a 3D position. It's just a cross, which is not rendered or whatsoever. It's just a direction or a position which can be used for any of your tool. So we can use that locator to actually make all the characters facing into the same position. So I just have to select my locator, go into the aligner, press Control to allow me to select both the locator and the population tool. So first select the locator, then select the population tool, and just press map. And once you press map, you have all the characters now, well, all the slots now moving, looking into the right direction here. If you apply some non-zero orientation on top, it will be headed on top of the look at. So make sure that if you got an offset, like all the characters, they are like opposites to your locator, make sure that your orientation is set to 0. And you can still, add some noise on top of it to just slightly noise those positions. So I was referring earlier to the fact that we've got blue slots and green ones. So that proportion can be changed if we want. So if we go into the population tool, it has plenty and plenty and plenty of closed panel. So I can expand the entity types panel here, entity types and group attributes. As soon as I do so, I end up with my man type and a weight, and my woman type and a weight. And I can see the final percentage here. So if I decide that I want to have twice more character being of type man than of type woman, I can just pump that slider. I can see that at the end now I've got 60% of my final crowd, which will be green, and 33% of my final crowd, which will be blue. I can even paint that data. I'm not going to show it here, but we've got some paint tool with which you can control, the actual repartition of the characters. And when I'm happy with that, I just press create here and run the sim. And now I end up with my crowd being placed and following the exact same rules than before. Great. So if I zoom in, I can see that I got some women characters where the blue positions are, and I've got some green characters where my men characters are. Well, my crowd is not so dense. Maybe I would like to make them more dense. That's probably because my geometry here was not really convenient. I made some pretty big poly. So if like me, you've been showing some really big polygons, which are not really good for your crowds, something which we can fix is into the pop tool. You may notice that you've got a number of columns and rows which are set to 1 and 1. So we're telling that every time we have a face, we're going to put an actual smaller pop tool, which is going to be a 1-1 grid. Let's say you want to have a 2-1 grid. You can put 2-1, but you would notice that the characters here, you don't even have more positions. That's also because here, the number of positions which have been defined is correlated to the number of faces that you've been selecting. So if I put, let's say, like a really high number, like 1,000, I can see that now. Let's put my distance back. I have, for every single face in the, oops, for some reasons, I removed the display of the pop tool. Wait, oh, yeah, that's because I put 4,000. So yeah, number of columns was not the right parameter, but now I can see on every single face, I've got a smaller pop tool, which is made of 2 columns and 1 row. So here, probably I want to invert this. I want to put 1 and 2 here. And 1 and 2 now allows me to have twice more characters per face. I can change the distance. The distance will allow to separate the character slightly. And if I want to replace this, I just have to replace the replace button. And the next time I'm going to throw the sim, I'll have twice more characters in the scene and the more denser scene. But well, to be honest, you probably expect the modeling to be good from the first point, so you don't have to cheat with that kind of stuff. But if you want to cheat with that kind of stuff, that's available as well. So okay, now we've got our characters being populating in the scene, playing the T-pose, all facing towards, so that's the root bone facing the actual position of the locator. And once again, don't forget that, if you change any parameters of the pop tool, for some reason you want all the characters to face, that specific position, which is, let's say, here. Don't forget that even if you relaunch the simulation, it will not update itself. You have to replace that population because anytime you replace, you're going to specify what's going to be the position and the orientation of the characters. So you have to specify it by yourself. So yeah, you have to hit the replace button. And the next time you throw the sim, now you've got all the characters converging to that actual point. Great. So let's put that locator back. Let's replace that crowd again. Awesome. So we would like to, so stadium crowds, they're pretty easy to do because, they're not really intelligent. They don't need to avoid. They don't, well, it's not being sarcastic about stadium people, right? But yeah, you don't have intelligent behavior. That's the way I wanted to put this in place. So they don't have to avoid, they don't have to adapt to terrain obstacles or whatsoever. But you just want to have diversity, and you just want to have plenty of those, and you just want to have, different behaviors being played. So here, if I want to have a pretty realistic crowd, what I just want to do is input some motions and provide plenty of diversity in terms of motions there. So we're going to open the behavior editor. And now we end up with 2 types of people. We end up with the man type and the woman type. And if we double click on the man type, we open the tab for the man. And if we double click on the woman, we open the workspace for the woman. So now we've got 2 types, so 2 different set of behaviors I can assign. Which means if I want, I can have both my men and women having different behaviors, different set of action, different reaction to what's going on for the stadium. So here I separated as men and women, but you can separate maybe guys holding a flag and guys not holding a flag, and have 2 different set of motions being assigned to those guys. So I'll go back to my man type, and I'm going to play with the exact same behavior we've been playing so far, which is the motion behavior. So I'm going to drag and drop it, put it into the flow, and I'm going to call it, well, BE Stadium probably. Well, BE Stadium motion. Whatever. And what I just want to do is load a bunch of motions for those just to bring diversity. So like we just did before with the walk animations, I'm going to double click on that behavior here to allow me to browse different files. And if you go into the character pack, Golem, motions, and you jump into the audience directory, you've got plenty of clips. So you got sit angry, sit applause. So I'm going to grab those. Sit applause in rhythm, sit watching 1 and 2. We're gonna not grab the sit and wave. Sit and wave, they're actually Mexican wave animation, so we don't want to play them right away. And well, you know what? We're just gonna play. Let me check. Let me figure this. Yeah, let's just load sitting animations there, right? So just load the 5 sitting animations and do not include the sit wave animation so far. So it means that now I'll have only characters sitting and playing different clips, right? So let's open those. So as always, I end up with my 5 different clips. I can change the start frame to bring diversity. I can change the speed ratio, like slowing it down slightly, speeding it up slightly. And I can also mirror those animations if I want to bring also a bit of diversity. So instead of having only 5 animations, I'll have 10. So the original motions and the mirrored versions of the animations. Let's take a look how it looks like. So there's going to be probably plenty of stuff to fix. There, as expected, plenty of stuff to fix, but still have my characters, my men characters, only my woman character, they're not being assigned with any animation so far. I got my characters while flying above the ground. We're going to fix this. Playing some random animation with different start frames and all being set. So, okay, kind of, well, we're converging to the result anyway. So obviously my women here, they're not being assigned with a behavior. So for sure, you know, we could go into the woman type, drag and drop some behavior, configure it the same way, and, you know, replicate the exact same result we've been doing. But maybe sometimes you want to have different characters in your scene, but you want to have the same behavior on your final characters. So you want to share the behaviors. So you can see here, the women, they are connected to a container called woman type shape container. And the men, they're connected to a container called man type shape container shape. So maybe what we can do is say, okay, we want the woman to read the behaviors from a different container than their default one. So what I can do is go into my woman entity type, go into the and go into its attribute editor, go into the Golem simulation attributes, which is closed by default, and I can expand it. And I was expecting to have it here. Wait, no, sorry, that's not Golem. Sorry, don't go into Golem simulation attributes. That's not exactly what it is. It's actually right below. So go with entity types attributes. Sorry about that. So that one is closed as well. So you want to expand it. As soon as you expand it, you end up with in behavior container drop down. And you can see we're saying, okay, the woman character, woman entity type, they're going to read their behavior from a container called woman type shape container. I actually want to change this. I want them to read the behavior from the man container. So I'm going to switch from woman to man. And just by doing so, if I double click on the man type, it brings me back to that setup of behaviors we just did. If I double click on the woman type, it's also bringing me into the same directory, the same container. And if I play the simulation now, I notice that men and women, they are not playing the same exact behaviors. So sure, we could have also copy paste behaviors around, but it will be like, you know, really tedious. Every time we change something, we'll have to replicate it onto the other characters. So we figured it could be also a nice way to share behaviors around. And also because we've got retargeting. So it means that even if men and women, they don't share the same skeleton, we don't care. We don't care because at the end of the day, we've got the retargeting, which will adapt the motions to the actual characters. So, okay, they're also flying around. So why is the reason for that? You can see that at frame 0, they actually have their feet on the ground, but then the root is actually not moving, and they're playing the animation of sitting by bringing the legs back up. So the reason for this is because we haven't defined a terrain in the scene. So by default, the crowd, where they don't have a terrain, they will assume that they don't need to adapt to the ground, and they will just play the motion without changing the root if within the final animation, the root is not moving. When you play a walk animation, you got the root moving in the animation, but in the sit, well, the motion starts being sitted, so the root is not really adapting to whatsoever ground that we have. So we need to say to the crowd here that that geometry we've been providing to them, it's an actual terrain that we want to adapt the feet on. So what we'll do is just select the geometry that we use for population. And we're going to go back into the previous chef icon, and specifically one which is going to be appropriate here is going to be the blue plane icon. And when you put your arrow upon it, it tells you it's the terrain locator, which allows to define a ground adaptation geometry and nav mesh based obstacles for 2D&1/2 avoidance. So we don't really care about the second part. That's something we're going to tackle on Thursday. But here, define the ground adaptation geometry. This is really something which we are interested in. So make sure to select your geo there, click on the terrain node, and it will create for you automatically a GLM environments group. And if we expand that GLM environments group, you'll have a terrain node in it, which will define what's the ground adaptation attribute. So ground adaptation attribute means on which geometry we're going to attach the characters to and on which geometry they're going to make ground adaptation on. And you can see it's connected to the plane that we just created for the stadium. And the next time we're going to throw the sim, now the characters, they're actually relying on the ground and putting their feet into the right position, depending on where they are exactly, depending on their orientation and so on. So now we've got non-flying characters playing some animation. And, you know, yeah, it's organic. They've got a variety of motions. Probably we need to provide more, but you get it. You get a sense of it. So let's say I would like also to have maybe some characters standing. Here we've been loading only sitting animations, but let's say we want to have some characters standing. So maybe I need to rename this. Let's rename that BE sit. That will be more appropriate. And what I want to do is bring some standing animation. So for sure, I could bring standing animation in the same behavior. If I double click here, I get the browser again. I can load standing animation. But what I would like to do is also show you how you can control the weighting of each animation. Here by default, when you assign 5 animations to the crowd, they're going to be evenly distributed amongst all the crowd. But let's say you want to be able to control how many characters will play that set of motions, be able to weight this. Let me show you how you can do that. So we're going to bring another motion behavior. Once again, it's still the same behavior we've been playing from the beginning with. And I'm going to rename that BE stand. Okay. And within that stand behavior group, I'm going to load some standing animation. So we got stand angry, 1 and 2, stand applause, stand rising arms, which is the animation we've been playing before, stand up mist, stand victory, stand watching. So, well, pick your favorite ones. There's no mistake here. So I'm going to pick those different motions there. I'm going to change, as always, the mirror to bring diversity. I'm going to change the start frame, so they start at different moments. I'm going to change the speed ratio, so they replay the motion with different speeds. And now I'll need to connect that behavior in some way with the graph to be able to control the weighting. So just another quick assignment here. Probably we need to use an operator amongst the list of behavior operators. Let's say we want to be able to control what's the weighting of each group here, which operator could we play with? So you can use your mouse to hover around and see what they allow you to do, and let me know if there's a guess you want to take. So okay, R&D is proposed, so R&D random sounds like a good option to me as well. This is actually the one I wanted to use. R&D would work totally. The if operator could work as well, because within the triggers, so the if can be combined with triggers to specify which output you'd like to pick. And you could, put some random trigger within it and say, okay, 30% of my crowd will pick this direction, else they will pick the other one. But that will be extra setup. If you want to have an easy setup, you can use the random operator. So the random operator, R&D, if you put your mouse above it, it controls which output connection is based on, it's chosen based on weighted random. So that's exactly what we want to do. So I'm going to bring my random operator here, and I'm going to put it before. So it means that I'm going to pick randomly an output destination. So by default, it's connected to the first behavior we've been playing, but now I can, with my middle click, draw a second choice, a second output out of my random. And as I want my graph to always exit, I'm also going to connect my stand animation back to my end of my simulation. So once again, I'll do it just so you have it. I took the random from the behavior operators there. I just put it here before, well, or you can just break that arrow if you'd like to. Doesn't make any difference. And you can just draw connection yourselves with the middle click. So from the start of the simulation to the random, I want at the start of the simulation to pick either the sit or the stand animation. And I want to close my graph, make sure that they have an input and an output. If I click on the random operator, it has some weight. So I can see the weight for sit is 1. The weight for stand is 1. If I say sit is going to be 3, stand is going to be 1, I'll have 3/4 of my crowd picking the sit animation, 1/4 of my crowd picking the stand animation. And if I throw the simulation, now I have, character standing, character sitting, and I've got way more diversity, and I've been controlling exactly what's the percentage of my crowd which will be standing and the percentage of my crowd which will be sitting. Great. So yeah, let's combine this with a Mexican wave. I would like my sitting characters to wave when a polygon goes behind it. So probably the first good thing to do will be to bring a polygon in, like we've been doing before. We had when we've been playing with the walking scene, we had a fixed polygon in the scene, and when the characters were entering the zone, they were playing a motion. So now we're going to do the opposite. We're going to have a polygon which will move, and as soon as the polygon enters the character, they will play the motion. So I'm going to bring a polygon in my scene. Let's make it large enough to contain the actual stadium size, probably a bit larger. And also for the sake of the use case here, so let's keyframe it. So you decide, the speed of it. And so let's keyframe it so it passes in one direction. So something like this. And let's also make it going back as well. So the plane goes twice below the characters. So let's put a keyframe back here. So that means that now I've got, okay. Great, okay. That's maybe a bit too fast. Let's add more frame here and expand my keyframes. Okay. Well, usually shots are not that long, but that's just for the sake of the demo. Other use case here. Great. Okay, excellent. So what we'd like to do is to say, whenever that plane goes by, I want all the characters which are seated to play a Mexican wave animation. So let's go back into my behaviors. And let's bring a new animation here, new motion behavior here. Let's probably rename that motion behavior wave, BE wave. And tricky questions will be, where do I put it? So where do I put it? I've got multiple options. I can put it here. So that's going to be option 1 at the beginning of my simulation. Well, there's so many options there, actually. I can put it here before the sit animation or after the sit animation. That's going to be option 2 and 3. I can put it before the stand or after the stand. That's going to be 4 and 5. Or I can put it at the same position than the sit. That's going to be 6 solution. And I can put it exactly at the same position of the stand. That's going to be 7. So yeah, 7 different choices. Which one do I pick? I've got 6, 6, 6, 6. Parallel of sitting. Create a folder. There's some people who are actually more experienced with Golem than just regular people apparently. 6 and 7, yeah. So for those are mostly good solutions. They would work. Well, if I put it, well, what doesn't work is if I put it here, I'll have all the characters waving from the beginning, and nothing tells them what to do when the plane is not here. So not really appropriate. If I put it here, same goes, same problem. If I put it after, same problem. What happens when that motion is not playing for the actual characters? So indeed, we need to play it in parallel with the rest. Here in my specific use case, I want only the seated people to play the wave. So the right solution will be to put it in parallel with the sit behavior. So to put it in parallel, if you remember well, you have to just drag and drop it and put it into the same position than the sit. If you release your mouse at the moment, you can see the sit blinking yellow. It creates the parallel operator. So I'm saying, okay, I'm going to randomly either standing, or I'm going to sitting, and at some situation, I'm going to stand. So why did I want to put it on the sit characters? Well, that's maybe because it's more convenient for me, because the animations we have for the Mexican wave, it's actually a full transition animation where the characters, they start seated, they stand and make the Mexican wave, and then they come back sitting. So if I was playing this animation at the same time than the standing animation, I will have characters standing. Then for 2 frames, they will sit in, just super quickly, then raising again. So that will not really look really natural. So I will have to, arrange the motion, remove the seated part. I can crop animations as well. So here I didn't want to mess up with the motion. So this is why I only wanted to have the sit animation being impacted by the Mexican wave. So let's bring Mexican wave animation here. So I want to double click on that behavior, bring any of those wave here. So I'm going to bring wave 1, for example. And let me show you how does that animation looks like. So as I was saying, it starts with the characters being seated, and then as the motion goes, you raise up and goes back to sitting. So also a tricky question, should I add diversity on that motion? So should I enable mirroring? What do you think? Should I mirror this animation? Would that bring something like diversity into the final results? I gotta know. Well, if I'm asking you questions, maybe that's a trick, right? So probably this is why you're saying no. But indeed, that motion, why it doesn't bring much stuff, because the animation actually looks symmetric. Where That's not something that you can get from the actual view from the motion replay, but it's even worse than that, is that actually the character moves his head on the right, is looking at the wave coming. It's something which is happening when you do a stadium, right? You're looking at the wave coming to know if it's your turn to raise up. So he's looking on his right. So if we mirroring this animation, at the end, we'll have characters, looking left, looking right, and not looking really synchronized. But apart from that, that motion is pretty symmetrical, so that doesn't bring much diversity here. So next questions is, should we change the start frame? All the time we're changing the start percent and we're starting at different position. Should we change the start frame? Interesting. The first answer I'm getting is maybe not, or very little, or maybe a little bit. Well, you guys are pretty bright, indeed. Maybe a little, because if we are just changing it like full range, it means that we may start at a standing point of the animation, or we may even start when the characters go back to sitting down. And this is obviously something we don't want. So indeed, we can quickly calculate maybe how much we can change the animation for. So the character gets sitting for approximately 20 frames, and the animation is 200 frames. So probably between the first 0 and 10% of the animation we can change. So we can slightly move it between, well, 0, 0, 1, depending on what kind of animations you have. Should we change the speed ratio? Slow it down, speed it up? Will that make sense? I get a yes. Very little variation. Might look a little more organic. Totally agreed. Yeah, absolutely. That's totally where you can actually pump this up. There are some people who are be slower in the way they react. There's going to be some people who do the animation faster. So that totally something I can do. So probably 10% less, 10% more to have some characters making that Mexican wave faster. Good. Well done. Well done, everybody. So last, well, not last. We want to obviously pump that behavior. Same thing that we did earlier, is that we want to say that when that behavior plays, it plays at maximum priority. So it's not blended with the sit animation. The sit animation is only like an idle animation. And only when the Mexican wave comes in, this is what we want to really play and take control. So on the wave behavior, we're gonna go into the blending attribute like we did before, go into the priority and weight attributes, and we're just gonna move that priority up. So that means that this is what's gonna be played onto a character. And actually, if we throw the sim, we can actually get the results of a crowd. So we can see a crowd, sitting down and playing the Mexican wave. So they're not connecting to the plane for now. But we can see them making the Mexican wave and checking if it's actually okay. They're all synchronized all together, so they're all rising independently from the zone they are at. But yeah, doesn't look that bad. So now let's connect it to my Polygon. So that's something we've been doing before, so it should be pretty straightforward. So I can go into my wave behavior. I want to change the condition under which it's going to start. So I'm going to click on the left arrow of my wave behavior. So that's going to be my starting trigger. And I want to change it for a Polygon trigger. So let's bring a Polygon once again. Let's press V or right click, set as root to enable it and make it what's going to be evaluated by the behavior. And let's connect the plane to it with the same key than before. So select the plane first into the viewport. So clear your selection, select the plane, hold Shift, select your trigger, and press the map button. And let's see the result of that. So now I got my crowd sitting as I expect them to. And when the plane goes by, I've got them waving. Sweet. So obviously they're not waving like right away, because we've seen in that motion that we got 20 frames of characters being seated and raising. So it takes just small delay from them to raise, but they all raise, as a wave and following the trigger. If we pay attention, they keep waving and waving again. That's because we didn't change the stop trigger. We haven't said anything about the way it should stop. So this is why it's looping the animation again and again and again. So when should we stop that animation? Should we stop that animation when the zone goes out? What should be the actual situation here? At animation hand, after played once, yeah, absolutely. So we want to play that animation once, and we want to stop afterwards. So how do we do this? So first, let's jump into the stopping trigger for my wave animation. So I'm going to select my wave, the second arrow, the one on the opposite, it's as the false trigger. And let's check the different triggers that we have. I'll let you explore the different various options that we have, see if there's something which could help us to play the animation once or to play it at the animation end. There are multiple solutions being available here, so let me know. I'm getting tired. So, okay, first proposition is motion behavior runtime. Motion time. Yeah, motion time is that one here. So motion time tells return true based on a motion behavior running time. Looks convenient indeed. Another trigger which would have worked as well is the expression trigger. Well, actually, the expression trigger is the casual. You can do everything you can do with the rest with the expression trigger. So expression trigger is always a good answer. But without too much burden, you could have also used the expression trigger here. Maybe I'll show you this if we get some time at the end. But indeed, motion time trigger will be a good candidate there. So let's bring the motion time trigger. Let's enable it with V, or right click, set as root. And let's check the different options that we have. We can control the duration attribute based on the percentage or seconds or frames. So it's really up to you. So frames is not going to be convenient here because, well, it could be convenient. Wait a minute. No, it's not convenient because we changed the speed ratio. So the length, the number of frames of the motion has changed. Yeah, it has changed. So seconds as well is not convenient because once again, it's related to how long the motion has been played. But as we've been changing the speed of it, it will change from one character to another. But percentage is something which will work. So we can say, okay, after having played the motion from 90% of its time, even if it's compressed, stop it. So if we just do this, and maybe we can monitor a character. Oh, that's a standing character. Bad luck. Let's monitor a sitting character. As soon as the Mexican wave comes in, we can see the wave animation is starting. We're playing it until we reach frame 200. And after having reached from 200, you can see the behavior just stop and we go back to the sitting animation. Awesome. Great. Let's see. So we got just maybe 5 more minutes before wrapping up. I also want to introduce you to another trigger we haven't played with so far, especially when you do Mexican wave like this. In some situation, well, the characters, they're not really aligned, but in some situation, the characters are really aligned in the stadium, and you can really feel that when the place comes in, got that really like linear triggering of behaviors. All the characters on the same columns, they're just rising at the same moment. And maybe in some situation you want to have more organic behavior on top of your character. So you may want to delay, even if the characters are within the zone, you may want to delay them slightly so they start a bit later compared to the others, so it brings more organicity. Yeah, I can see, yeah, motion time. Let me just go back into motion time if you missed that part. So what we've been doing is we changed the stopping trigger of the Mexican wave. And rather than having the force trigger, we've been playing with the motion time. So the motion time icon is the working character with the clock icon next to it. So you just drag and drop it. Right click to set it as root so it becomes active, or you can press V for it to become active as well. And you can control 3 different parameters, which are seconds and frame, which are not going to be really convenient here because we're changing the speed of that animation. So we want to rely on how much of the motion has been played. So if you say 92% of the motion, we're going to stop that behavior after the motion clip has been played for 90% of its own duration. So if you just provide some high value here, we'll just stop at some point. Okay, so let's go back to my organic starting triggering here. So let's go back into my start trigger. And now I'm saying, my characters, they're going to start only when the zone gets in. And yeah, as I was saying, when the plane gets in, you got that really frank triggering of behaviors. So let's say you want to fade this. There's actually a trigger here, which can be convenient, which is called the fade trigger. So it allows to fade the results of the previous trigger. You should probably be into the operators more than within the trigger library. But anyway, so I'm going to bring that fade. And actually here, I don't want to combine the 2 triggers together. I want to first make sure that I'm in the zone. But once I'm in the zone, then I want to fade that result. I don't want to start right away. So I'm going to sequence the 2 triggers together. First, I want to check I'm in the zone. And once I'm in the zone and I'm OK, I know that everything is going to be fine, then fade that result. I don't want to start it right away. I had one of the person following the session earlier asked me if you could apply 50% of the people being in the Polygon zone. That's also a way to say it. First, you can say I want to be into the Polygon zone, and then you can sequence a 50% afterwards, and you're saying, okay, now that I'm in the zone, okay, I'm done with that. I want to be part of the 50%. And that's also another way to explain that. So let's take a look to that fade. So first I connect the zone, then I connect the fade. And the fade, I'm going to specify how long I'm going to fade in. So how long is it going to take for the characters to evaluate that fade? So I can say, okay, I'm going to fade in for maybe 1.5 seconds, like 30 frames or so. So let's provide a duration of 30 frames. And now I can draw with a ramp what's the chance at every of those 30 frames that you start doing the Mexican wave. So obviously, when the ramp is at I value of 1, it means that all the characters start right away at frame 1 of the ramp. If you put something at 0 here, it means that none of the character on the duration of the 30 frames will trigger. So you can just draw kind of a curve, something like this. So during the first 25 frames of that duration here, you'll have a small chance, but still a chance to start that triggering animation. And by the end of the 30 frames, I want all of you to actually rise. And now if I just throw the sim again, and maybe I'm going to monitor character as well and open the behavior editor in parallel. So let's try to have everything in the same screen. So I have my zone being true for that character here. So first we evaluate the zone, then we're going to evaluate the fade. So that's 1 frame, 2 frames, 3 frames, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and at some point 8, 9, 10. At some point you can see that even if the zone is out of the character, we're still fading in. And now we can see that the fade returns true, which means the wave is starting. And now we get something a bit more organic. Some characters that are not rising at the exact same moment we've been fading that result in. Great. So yeah, we had to went through Stadium pretty quickly in an hour. So I didn't have the chance, to add more into this. I just want to to take the last 10 minutes to fill with questions. They can be general questions, stuff we've been seeing so far. But yeah, if you got anything related to what we've been seeing or to what we will see in the next session, now is probably a good moment. In the meantime, you're gathering your questions and putting them into the question and answer section. Let me remind you that everything we did today has been recorded. It will be posted probably tomorrow. Also, you're going to be asked tomorrow to provide your MAC address. So we'll be able to provide you with a license, especially if you want to make the assignment at the end of the training session. If you want to make your own crowd shot and have it reviewed by experienced crowd TD, that will be a good chance to do it. And also the scenes so far, they will be also shared probably on our website at some point. Let me save, by the way, that scene. And yeah, you got a poll as well to see if you guys were able to get fill the stadium and get the Mexican wave working. I'm kind of disappointed I couldn't get to the TIFO part, but I'm probably going to make another tutorial. If you want to follow that, I'll make a tutorial probably tomorrow. So yeah, you can fill. I can fill it. You can fill that skill into your stadium as well. Where was the option for priority and blending? Because I see that wave animation is not fully reproducing and it's blending with the other one. Yeah, gotcha. Well, you got, I think, in brackets. If you want to make sure, don't forget that you can click on a character anytime and you can see exactly what it's doing at any time. So let's say I go back into that simulation here. Now I can see it's making 100% of the sit animation. And as soon as the Mexican wave starts, we can see that the weighting and the blending shows me that the sit is decreasing in weight and the wave is increasing in weight and is taking full control of the posture. So now I know that my priority is working because my final posture is controlled by the wave. So if you're seeing something like 50-50 or something which is not expected, it means that indeed the blending is not correct into your final results. So you want to go into your wave animation. You want to go into blending attribute, which is closed by default. So it's one of the panel below the speed ratio, which is closed by default. And you want to go into priority and weight attributes. And you want to make sure that the priority is above what's in the sit. So here my priority in the wave is 3. My priority in the sit is 2. So it means that my wave has a higher priority than my sit. So it means that it will take full control of the scene. I have a stadium scene which I would like to populate with crowd, non-commercial work possible to render it without orange stuff. Also, my scene is made in 1:1 scale. The human is actually 1.83 centimeters tall. How to sort that stuff with these characters which are so small? So 2 questions in one here. So how do you set up the scale being proper for your characters? You may have noticed that into every single entity type we're having, we have scale min and scale max attributes. So let's say your scene is 100 times bigger. Well, you can, instead of having 0.9 and 1.1, you can provide 100 times that value. So it's going to be 90 and 110. Well, if I do this, it's going to make some really weird simulation. But you get 100 times bigger characters. So you can set it up here. So let's go back to my 1.1. Or within the manager, we also have like a global entity scale. So let's say your entity are not at the same scale that your environment, and your environment is really what makes you decide what's the crowd unit. You can just scale up your characters with the entity scale here. And it's going to produce the same result that what I've been doing, but rather than tweaking every single entities, you just tweak a global parameter there. So hope that solved the questions. And regarding non-commercial work, yes, correct. If you do non-commercial work, you can just use, we can provide you with a license to be able to render your crowds. Or maybe something, if we never heard about you, what we can do is just ask you to provide us with the scene and we can unlock the scene for you so you can render it without the watermarks. Up. So that's been answered. The little dudes are not standing when my wave zone is returning. Can trigger twice? That's something I wanted to address, but I didn't have the chance to do it. So yeah, if you actually want to have your wave zone, I can like show it to you. So you don't have to reproduce it, but I can show it so you get an idea of what's going on and why it doesn't work. So indeed, if the zone comes back, so let me just move my keyframes. So my characters got a chance to actually wave properly. So I asked you guys when we are making the scene, I asked you guys to make the zone return. And indeed, if the zone returns, once the characters as back to standing, like here, for example, that guy here, will never move back into waving. The reason for this is because once that wave behavior has been running once, it has exit, because we said, okay, after 92% of playing the animation, I just want to stop. So that behavior just stops, and the electric signal I was referring to, it just goes out and stays into here until that behavior stops, so we can go into the next step. Let's say we want that wave to rehappen again. We can take a look into what are the different loops, the different operators that we have. And one operator that we have is the loop operator. And the loop operator, according to the shape, allows you to restart an animation under the same condition if you need to restart it. So that wave animation, I can put it into a loop, and that loop, I can put it back into the parallel. So it means that when it stops, it goes out, but rather than going directly into the parallel and waiting to go out from here, it will just re-put the signal, the electric signal, back here and wait for the same trigger, the trigger related to the zone, to rehappen again. So if I run the same again, now I have characters waiting for the zones. So playing the nice animation. Let's open the visual feedback. So we can see that sit wave is going to stop at some point. And when it goes back, that sit wave resume again, and it will resume as many times as your polygon will go through. Great. Any more questions? It's almost 10 p.m. here. Haven't had the chance to have dinner yet, so if you guys don't have questions, let's meet back on Thursday. So that's going to be same time. And once again, the video will be published tomorrow. You'll get an email with all the data. If you got any questions, please come onto the Discord to ask. If your questions need to be private for some reasons, you can also fill the support form from the website. You've got a help support, and that just reach everybody in the team. So in the meantime, you guys have a great evening, day, morning, whatsoever, depending on the time zone where you are. I hope you enjoy that time. Yeah, see you on Thursday to make army informations and convert your own characters as well. You guys take care. I see your question, Ronan. And indeed, you should mirror those animations if the wave is coming from the other way. To be honest, we should probably have been obliged to create another behavior with the mirrored version of the animation. And or there was some way to trick this, but indeed we should have mirrored this. See you, everybody.